right. Hey, folks. Happy, what's today? Monday? Happy Monday. Where do I start? There's so much to go over tonight, but we are going to make this work. I apologize for being late. Look, we at war, okay? Give me a minute. All right. Trying to get all this information to present for all of y'all. All right, let me get in a few hellos, and then we're going to just jump right into a few announcements and then get into our commentary, all right? Let me make sure my chat is set to all so I can see everybody. Also, by the way, in the event that our sound magically goes out, because for some reason, whenever we get on like some real-ish, for some reason, the sound always cuts out. If the sound cuts out and I do this like 1 minute thing, that means just close it out because I'm going to just start a new live and then hit the refresh button. At some point, I will pop up in the YouTube algorithm and just go to the new video. This link will be dead because for some reason, this has happened probably twice in the last 5 lives. I don't understand what's going on. So yeah, in the event that the sound magically goes out, all right, just if I do this one thing, just that means I'm going and I'm typing and making a new video, and just go to that video. Give me about 5 minutes. All right. Anyway, all right. Anyway, so what's up? The Dade County Diva. What up, Alan? Latricia Jones, 8753. I was wondering when you're going to go live. I've been busy, y'all. I'm sorry. I hate when I'm going for more than a week and a half, but life be lifing. And it's like every time, it's almost like maybe if I stay put, nothing will happen. But every time I disappear, it's everything under the sun you can think of goes down. So I'm like, let me just start being like Kizzy. That means you just stay put. All right. Avocado Queen, Sochi 314. Avocado Queen, we got beef. Okay, now you the main one always talking about when we doing a Zoom party. We had a Zoom party on the night. We had a great time. You weren't there for a second time. You are on punishment, by the way. I just want you to know that. Still love you, but that's all right. Yeah, anytime we do the Zoom parties, you better think Avocado Queen, and you better probably think Sarah, because those are the two that will keep reminding me about them. Let's see. What up, Brihan? What up, share.com? What up, Ms. Neat 723? All right, I got to get it started, y'all. I apologize if I did not get to give you a shout out, but I appreciate each and every one of you for being here tonight. Now, a few announcements. Next book club session is supposed to be Monday, March 9th, which is next Monday. There may be a possibility that I might push it back a week-ish. And that's because, like I told you guys before, I'm about to travel out of the country. And so that would technically be the night before my flight. So just as long as everything is good, we can still do the book club. But if I got a lot of stuff that I'm backed up with, I might have to push it back. But either way, we're reading chapter 2 of Clay Cain's Burn Down Master's House. This will be the chapter of Josephine. So if you haven't read it, you can definitely still catch up if you didn't read the first chapter. It's only 4 chapters in this book because each chapter is actually the story of these different individuals. It's a fictional book, but it's kind of like historic fiction. And so if you didn't get a chance to read the first chapter, that's fine. We had our session last Monday. Had a great session, by the way. I appreciate everybody who was on. Lots of fun, lots of great commentary. Shout out to people who were there from Turks and Caicos and the UK and all over. So we had a great mix of folks who, shared their insight. I love that the book club has a generational mix of everything, where there's young, there's more seasoned, there's people in my age bracket. And so you get a bit of everything. Like I said before, the book club, we're very informal. I know this channel, I think I'm pretty informal on this channel anyway. Aside from the videos that are pre-recorded, usually these lives, this is the same energy you're going to get all night, right? We're having a conversation. We can present the facts, but it's very, I feel like this is a very approachable space that we're always in. So yeah, for people who sometimes feel that they may be intimidated or like, oh, I don't know if I can go on there if I don't have the intellectual capacity to participate. Nah, we on there having laughs and conversations and everything. So feel free to hop on. Anyway, like I've been saying, since Cuckoo Man got in there, this is the era of one being in community and having discernment, right? And that's going to just be the theme all year. By the way, this was one of the most chaotic Black History Months ever. So Black History Month has just been extended through the rest of the year and will actually extend forever internally. So infinity. So to infinity and beyond, it's Black History Month every day around here. And so I said, we're going to hit a redo because I'm like, how you going to start a war on the last day of Black History Month? All right, let's get to Iran. Oh my God. Now this is going to be a very long segment, so bear with me because I'm like, we're going to have to. My God. When I tell y'all I'm tired, like I'm like, damn, sometimes I want to come on here and just do like a fun live and we can just laugh and talk about fun stuff. I'm like, dang, it gets exhausting having to constantly, indulge and saturate in all of this chaos that takes place. And I'm not complaining because I appreciate that you guys kind of look to me and other people for insight. So I appreciate that. But dang, sometimes I'm like, can we just get a minute where the world is not crazy? It's like something every day. By the way, if I keep looking here, it's because my notes are right here. I didn't use no paper today. I was like, let me just type my notes so I can scroll and get to them faster. Okay, so let's get to Iran. As we know, on the last day of Black History Month, February 28th, the United States and Israel decided to launch airstrikes in Iran. I want to backtrack and just give some context about our relationships with Iran and Israel, and then the relationships with Israel in that region. We kind of did this before, maybe 6 or 7 months ago when there were those strikes that took place in 2025. But it's always fine for a refresher, and I just want the context to be right because we're getting a million different narratives about why we even went over there. And the stories aren't adding up. You got Marco Rubio doing that press conference today sounding a fool, just saying any and everything. Orange Man is up there looking sedated, doing his press conference, looking like I don't know what he's talking about. He's giving the notes and instructions where if he's taken out, this is what y'all need to do. Listen, I'm going to just say this. In the event that Orange Man is no longer with us, first of all, don't expect me to have a cut card on this channel that night. But if you think anybody in their right mind is going to follow any instructions that he's left behind after he has left us in nothing but turmoil and BS, and then he gets to go and die, absolutely not. Anyway, so giving some context here. Now, Iran and the United States have not really dealt with each other for like a good 70, 80 plus years. They haven't dealt with us. They don't actually, it's not hasn't been that long, more like 70. They stopped effing with us around 1953. And that's because our CIA decided to go and help overthrow their democratically elected minister, Mohammed Mossadegh, right? He was elected by the people. Our CIA came in there like, oh no, that's going to go against U.S. interests. We got to get him out of there. So went in there and did that. You have the Iranian Revolution in 1979, where they pushed out the U.S. Backshah that was in power at the time. We had the hostage crisis in 79 going into 81. That was also very interesting because remember when they did take the hostages, who did they set free right away? He let all the black folks go because they said, y'all going through enough in y'all country. We're going to let y'all go. Iran, I hope y'all had that same energy because we ain't got nothing to do with what's happening, right? Even if, please don't think collectively black folks are rallying behind Orange Man and his nonsense and his marriage and bootlicking straps to Netanyahu, okay? Please look at the voter demographics of who signed up for what in November of 2024 because it wasn't us. So please keep that same energy. Y'all want to start whacking folks? I can give you the address. Let me not say that on here. But yeah, we ain't in it. We've been minding our business. We've been drinking our water. We've been babysitting the godchildren and the kids. And some of us, we've been talking to our pets, reminding our pets that there's certain things that they're not allowed to do in comparison to white people's pets that be like, we're in another world. So Iran, all y'all please understand, black folks ain't got nothing to do with none of this. We were enjoying our last day of Black History Month. Like, what? Anyway, back to my point. All right, so then between 1980, 1988, there was the beef between Iran and Iraq. And the United States chose the side of Iraq and then gave all of these weapons to Saddam Hussein and helped them kind of fight Iran, even though on the back end we were still doing some stuff behind the scenes and supplying a little bit of everybody. We were kind of like playing puppeteer and just all in the mix, right? So then things kind of calmed down a little bit. Iran really didn't F with us. The United States had lots of like propaganda films and stuff. Remember the movie Not Without My Daughter with, who's that? Not Susan Sarandon, Sally Fields, right? That was the movie where Sally Fields, she's married to the man that's from Iran, and she goes to Iran to visit his family with their daughter. And then all of a sudden he's the most abusive, Ike Turner, knock upside the head kind of husband, snatches her passport, kidnaps her. She can't leave Iran, and she's stuck there for 2 years. And mind you, it was a true story, but they made a movie about it. I think it came on Lifetime or something. And so, and the movie comes out, and it was a great film to get everybody to really hate Iran. If you got it right, it was very American patriotic. Even at the end of the movie when she makes it to, because they were riding through the desert and riding on camels and all kind of backwoods stuff to get to a U.S. embassy because there wasn't one in Iran. And then, it shows the American flag just waving and whatever. And she's carrying the daughter and she's like, we're home, babe. We're home. Like, it's just So the perception that a lot of Americans have about Iran has not always been great to begin with, right? Then in 2002, George Bush decided for some reason he needed to say, Iran, North Korea, a few other people, these are the countries that exist on the axis of evil. Now, mind you, we just went into Afghanistan and we were getting ready to go and tear up Iraq, but, axis of evil. So there's all these terms that are always thrown out there. So Iran is always like, we do what we do, but y'all ain't off the hook either, because the United States, y'all got your fingers tied and everything. So who are you to tell us how we do anything? And then again in 2020, that was when the United States launched the strikes in Iraq, but it killed an Iranian general, Soleimani. And if you remember, I think I did a live because I was stressed out, because that was, again, one of the other things that's nerve-wracking when all this happens is I live in the DC region, right? I live around DC, and I'm always either in DC or I'm always in New York. Two places that are normally the target if something were to ever go down. So every time we have these moments where they jump into something, I'm like, please just, if it happens, let it be real quick. Let me not even know. Let me just be done, right? White flash, just get it out the way. I don't want, man. So that's already nerve-wracking, because, when they did the Soleimani strikes and then Trump uploaded that pixelated picture of the United States flag, I was like, God, what are we doing? All right, so that was that. Now, I want to backtrack, because the origin of how we even got to some of this centers with the Iran deal, and a lot of this also deals with Israel. But I want to start with the Iran deal first. So context to the Iran deal. Right? July 14, 2015, Obama enters into this new deal with Iran, right? It's called the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. And this was kind of like a treaty, and it was made with the permanent members of, let me make sure I wrote this down properly. Okay, made with the permanent members of the UN Security Council. That included the United States, that included China, that included Germany, that included France, Russia, and the UK, right? And so one of the things that was taking place before they came into this deal was there was a conversations about Iran getting closer and closer to developing a nuclear weapon, right? Getting closer and closer and closer. One of the things about this deal was, okay, well, if you guys enter into this deal, great. If you decide to pull out of the deal, that at least gives everybody else about a year window to prepare for what a nuclear Iran would look like. So that's part of the deal. So then with the deal, what happened is Iran was going to roll back on the nuclear program. And every 90 days, the United States president would have to certify that Iran was still upholding the agreement within this deal as far as the requirements and that the rules were being followed. Every 90 days, they're going to check in. You're going to have the inspectors go look at all these different facilities and make sure that certain things aren't happening. And so Iran had agreed. They said, all right, cool. We'll jump into this deal. And in this deal, we will agree to not produce enriched uranium or highly enriched uranium, right? Or the plutonium that could be used to create a nuclear weapon. But in exchange, the sanctions have to be lifted, because we're not allowed to do a lot of business with other countries, because when there's a sanction, nobody can work with you. And so we're losing money. It's affecting our people. It's affecting the schools. It's affecting our infrastructure, all these different things. So we'll pull back. And with the stipulations with that also meant that the uranium enrichment levels could not surpass 3.67%. Now, to make a nuclear weapon, you need to be at 90%. Again, so they're going from whatever percentage they had down to, you can never go beyond 3.67%. And that deals with more so electricity and resources, not any kind of weapons. And now that part of the deal would last for 15 years. And then another 10 years for uranium being limited to only one facility. So for all of the facilities that they had, they could only be enriching uranium in one facility. And again, at a rate of 3.67%, not 90. And so they agreed to reduce the enriched uranium that they already had by 98%. They pretty much got rid of their entire enriched uranium stockpile. 98% of it, they got rid of it. I don't know how you get rid of that stuff, but whatever they did, they got rid of it, right? And then they were compliant with this deal. And every 90 days, the United States would go and check and say, hey, what's going on? Hey, come on into our facilities, and this is what we have. And so they would also take steps to ensure that it was called the Fordo plant, the Nantes plant, and Iraq facilities pursued only civilian work, again, including medical, industrial research, and again, when we talk about electricity. Actually, I can share an image with you guys really quick if I can pull it up. Let's see. Here I go, being that millennial again. I got to narrate what we're doing. So, oh my God, the image didn't show all the way? What? Okay, never mind. I had an image. It's not labeled properly, but use your imagination. These little spots right here, these would have been the areas where the sites were. I don't know why that didn't properly, but whatever. Okay, we'll keep it moving. But it had those different locations of where those plants were. And so the inspectors were going into all those different plants all across the country, making sure that everything was the way that it was supposed to be as far as them abiding by the rules. Now, like we said, in exchange, sanctions would be lifted. And this would add about $100 billion to their economy, which again would help build with infrastructure, academic stuff as far as the schools, freeways, all that other stuff. Because again, they've been kind of under all of these different sanctions where they can't even do business with other countries. So that was what they were dealing with. Now, Orange Man gets into office. You know, Orange Man already don't like Obama. Anything Obama did is a disaster. It's the worst thing ever. This is the worst thing ever. This is the worst. And he kept saying he gave all these money to terrorists. In the way that Orange Man would paint this, he made it look like Obama and crew had briefcases full of billions of dollars that they went and they took to Iran. Now, they did take $400 million to Iran as a part of, I forgot what that was a part of. But anyway, the way they painted the narrative, it was like, oh no, your tax dollars, they took billions and billions, and it's suitcases and limos and people speaking in code and all this other stuff, billions that we're just giving to Iran. It was presented as we're giving billions to Iran to not make a bomb. When in reality, the money that was being given was more so centered in the conversation of what was happening with sanctions and everything else that was happening, right? Now, Orange Man gets into office. April 2017, the inspectors still go to Iran. Everything is all good. Orange Man is like, they're listening. They're complying. We're good right now. Obama's still stupid, but they're complying, right? July, the next 90 days, they go, everything is still good. July 2017, everything's all great. Out of nowhere, because we have an impulsive president, even when he was at the 45 term, and I know we're in the 47, very just in the moment, right? Just jumps into things, right? Just doesn't matter what happens, just right in the moment. He decides we're pulling out of the Iran deal, right? So he pulls out of the Iran deal May 8th of 2018. Now understand, once they pull out of that deal, Iran has agency to do whatever they want, right? And in addition to that, Orange Man also decided any country that's in the EU, if you do any business with Iran, you too will get sanctions, because he loves to punk everybody with America's wallet. He swears that we're the only people that can, do trade with everybody. And that if people don't, we just are the golden country. We have the golden currency. We have the golden goods. We are the golden everything. And you will lose your United States privileges. So anyway, by 2019, Iran is like, well, since you have now put the sanctions back and done all these different things, we're going to go back and finish building the stuff that we want to build. Because here's the reality. Iran wants to build their weapons because they are in a region where they have to constantly go back and forth with Israel. In addition, for them, they're looking at it like this is a protection mechanism. If we're able to get a nuclear bomb, the United States can no longer punk us. They can't push us around because now we have exactly what it is that they have. That's really the reality. But the United States has decided that even though we have thousands of warheads, we're the only people that can have them, plus our friends that we approve of, right? We can't really make Russia get rid of theirs, but, we have a treaty with Russia that's kind of up in the air right now. And, there's other countries that have nuclear weapons, but there's this narrative of we have to control what Iran does. For some reason, there's all these old white men in the United States government that have been in charge that have aligned and nominated themselves to be the moral compass of the world, and they get to decide who are the bad people and who are the good. And so Iran has been painted as the bad since forever and a day, right? Anyway, so Iran begins increasing their uranium production. They get up to 60%. Now, that's in 2019. Now, Biden gets into office. Biden attempted to try and re-enter into a deal with Iran because the issue was, okay, Iran's getting closer. Maybe we should try to, let's bring back some diplomacy. Let's see what we can do, right? We were doing this some years ago, and, Biden was technically vice president the first time. So, he knows some of the same. Hey, how you feeling, man? Let's talk about the deal, right? That's where we're at. Unfortunately, Iran is kind of like, nah, we good. Because you guys as a country are inconsistent. We see the pattern of what happens with the United States when they enter deals with other countries all around the world. And we see how you guys always flake, especially with Cuckoo Man, who y'all just elected the first time. We don't want to run the risk of getting into something and then somebody like him gets back in there and guts everything. So we're good. We're good over here. We got our own little ecosystem. Everybody else in the Middle East is acting like they got some sense at the moment. We're good. We don't want to be in your little deal. Right? And so the other thing to take note is, with the Iran deal, the segment that we talked about where there would be the one facility that would only be the one doing the uranium enrichment, that portion of the deal would have expired in 2025. But I'm sure most likely, had we still had some good diplomatic relations, there would have just been an extension of that bill with some new, pieces added to it. So, you get some incentives, we get some incentives, everybody sleeps good at night, nobody has to get blown up. That was the reality, right? And so that's kind of the relationship with Iran before about 2025. Stay with me. Well, really before 2020, right? Stay with me. Now let's get to Israel. Now we know Netanyahu. Y'all know he's my second least favorite person in the world, next behind Orange Man. Them two right there. Anyway, Netanyahu has been pressed about Iran since forever and a day, right? Iran and Israel are they not good, okay? Iran and Israel are kind of like, what's a good example? Just think of like 50 and Ja Rule circa 2003. That's them. That Drake and Kendrick in the modern times. That's Iran, that's Israel. They just are never going to get along. It's not happening, right? And so what's very interesting is June 13th of 2025, which stressed me out because I was in Miami that day at the where was that? I was at ABFF. Was it ABFF? Was it ABFF? It was ABFF Film Festival, right? Shout out to you, Amanda. I remember you from hosting the event, or she was one of the people working the film festival. So I'm supposed to be, working and doing all the stuff for my film. And next thing you know, Israel has struck Iran. Now I'm stressed out because we already know anytime Israel does something, here come the United States right behind them. We're just all in this together, right? And so Israel attacks Iran, and they're making all these statements. Oh, it was the nuclear weapons, blah, 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 blah. They were building arsenals. Everybody was in danger. And the part that was very interesting was just a few days before, Tulsi Gabbard, remember Tulsi, who I always call Rogue from X-Men because she got that gray strip? She had just released a statement stating the intelligence community continues to assess that Iran is not building a nuclear weapon. And Supreme Leader Karamani has not authorized a nuclear weapon program he has suspended since 2003. That was a statement that was released just before Israel decides to go and attack Iran, right? Iran is like, y'all got us effed up because we weren't bothering nobody. So you know what? We got something for y'all. Iran said, okay, Israel, since y'all want to get froggy, we all about to jump. So then Iran attacks Israel, right? And they're shooting all the missiles. Now, Israel has the Iron Dome, right? Your tax dollars pay for Israel to make sure that they don't get blown up. So just remember, every single time you run your water and there's rust in it or anything else like that, that wasn't a priority because all of the priorities to your tax dollars has to go to funding Israel to keep getting on everybody's nerves on that other side of the world. So anyway, Iron Dome is doing their thing and blocking most of the missiles and all the other stuff like that. And so, mind you, the United States, we're already pulled into the mess with Gaza, right? Which Biden and Kamala were already receiving a bunch of pushback with that because they were not trying, they were trying to get reelected, right? Before October 7th of 2024, or excuse me, 2023, they were riding high. They're like, how do we rebuild what we got going? We got to get people excited because it's kind of been a questionable time period. People still mad about inflation. People talking about the price of eggs. Orange Man sounds like he's considering running again. We got to figure this out, right? So that's where their priority was. And then Netanyahu decided, as a result of what happened on October 7th, oh no, I'm about to obliterate Gaza. And so that starts happening. Now they're pulled into that. They already don't want to really be in it. They're not the closest with Netanyahu. Netanyahu realizes he has more leverage with Orange Man. He can get Joe to kind of do some of the things that he needs, but they're getting a lot of pushback, right? And there's lots of conversation about ceasefire, because again, Joe and Kamala are not trying to be the face of what's happening in Gaza. Unfortunately, Netanyahu realizes, nah, I'm gonna ride this out because if I give Joe and Kamala a hard time and they lose, get them out of here, my boy Orange Man comes back in and he'll do everything I tell him to do because that's how he always moves, right? And so all ceasefire negotiations are sabotage until, ladies and gentlemen, January 19th, 2025, the day before Orange Man is sworn in. That's when Netanyahu decides he'll take some ceasefire negotiations, and then they announce a ceasefire. And so they do all that. Mind you, that's also a hot mess, right? Because the ceasefire falls apart by March, and by March of 2025, Orange Man is announcing the Gaza Riviera, right? Because like we said, Orange Man will do Netanyahu's dirty work. Netanyahu loves to use the United States to do all of their proxy wars. And so before 2020, the United States had never attacked Iran, ever. We had our smoke. We talked our trash. We exchanged insults. There was never an attack. And then that goes back to what I said about the 2020 with Soleimani when they hit the base in Iraq and killed Soleimani, right? And so that kind of reignites the tension that exists. Now, like I said, June 13th, 2025, that's when Israel attacks Iran. By June 22nd of 2025, the United States now attacks Iran. We jumped in the fight. Oh, you hit my brother? Hold up. I know it happened 2 weeks ago, but we still mad. So we're jumping in. Now we're attacking Iran, right? Now, here's the thing. The problem is that anytime something happens, specifically with Israel or Iran, the entire region gets to stabilize. Now, we did this 6 months ago, but I think it's time for a refresher. So can we go back to the map to give a refresher of all the relationships of the countries in the Middle East? So let me pull up my lovely map here, and we're going to share this screen. All right, kids. I miss working with my kids, so I'm going to call y'all kids tonight. All right. Let me make sure y'all can see. Lovely. Okay, let's go through these relationships. Now, as we know, this is Egypt. And I'm going to base this on relationships with Israel specifically, because since they kicked it off, I'm just going to talk about how this affects the entire region and then where Iran falls in, right? So there's Egypt. Now, Egypt and Israel, they're cordial. They get along. Egypt sometimes be on some nonsense. They were kind of playing a few games in everybody's faces with the Palestine and stuff. But Egypt and Israel, they get along. They're pretty cordial. That's that. So we're going to keep it moving. Then we get to, I'm trying to find Lebanon. All right, we got Lebanon right here. Right, Lebanon is interesting. Lebanon and Israel do not get along at all. Nope, point blank. Period. Right. The United States has also invaded Lebanon specifically because of the Ebola stuff. Right. So that's Lebanon. Then we get to Jordan. Right. Jordan's right here now. Remember, Israel's right here. Now we have Jordan. Jordan, they're cordial. Right. They signed a peace treaty back in 1994. Hasn't really been any problems with Israel and Jordan. Not too many, right? Then we have to the north, you have Syria. Now, Israel and Syria are not friends, right? The United States has never invaded Syria, but we've done lots of operations in Syria with drones and missiles and everything else like that. That's normally the thing we have. So again, Israel and Syria, they don't deal with each other, okay? Vinegar and oil, you stay, and look how close the borders are, right? They right here. So it's like you're right, two neighbors with the fence between them talking trash across the fence and the dogs are barking, right? That's Syria and Israel, okay? Then let's go down south some. We have, where's Turkey? Turkey, where y'all at? Oh, here we go. Then we have Turkey, right? Turkey is a part of NATO. Turkey, even though Turkey's kind of sick of the United States, Turkey is Eddie Kendricks after Paul had left the Temptations and David already got kicked out, and they swapped him with Dennis, right? Eddie was ready, after Turkey is at the just my imagination stage of the Temptations era. They are about sick of NATO. They're sick of the United States. They ready to get up out of here. Turkey is not cool with Israel at all, right? They're not cordial. They are sick of it. They're like, y'all got too much going on over there. We can't sleep at night. The United States and NATO keep pulling us into their drama. We're just trying to do our Turkish thing. Y'all got all this mess going. Like, y'all doing a lot, right? So that's Turkey. Then we get to Saudi Arabia. Let me go down. Here's Saudi Arabia. Let me zoom in a little bit so you can see the map a bit better. Here's Saudi Arabia. Now, Saudi Arabia, and mind you, this is all before the attacks of last week, because some of these relationships are about to change. Saudi Arabia, up until, before the 28th, right? They were kind of just there. They're not really friends with Israel, but they're not enemies. They just don't really F with Iran either. Like, if they have to choose a side, they don't really want to choose anybody. But if they had to, they'll likely kind of ride with Israel before they ride with Iran, because these two don't get along. These two don't fight and argue so much. This is the neighbors that go on Judge Judy and fight about the fence being built and somebody's tree got chopped down. They're going to fight about it forever, right? And so, actually, let me backtrack. And when it comes to the relationship with Israel, the only way they'd even entertain Israel is if Israel decides to support a two-state solution with Gaza, right? And the Palestinians. That's the only way they'll even entertain Israel. Again, they still got beef with Iran. We're not friends. We ain't really friends either, but we can tolerate y'all if you agree to a two-state solution with the Palestinians. So in Israel, two-state solution, Israel, Gaza, or Palestine, right? That's Saudi Arabia. Then we go to Iraq. Iraq is tired, right? They've been getting mocked up since 2003, well, a few times, because the U.S., every time we get mad, we bombing something in Iraq. We went and did it in 91. We went and did it in 98. And then after 9/11, somehow there were weapons of mass destruction. And we went there in 2003 and were there for a decade and some change, right? And so Israel and Iraq have been beefing. They got a lot of beef, right? They had some military action against each other back in 1948. They had some more in 1967 and some more in 1973. It's a part of the Israeli-Arab Wars. Now, they are the only country to not sign a ceasefire deal with Israel from back in 1948. Like, they still got smoke, right? Their situation is, we see you. And if you step in our yard, it's on and popping. But at the same time, They are exhausted because the United States just did so much to them after the Iraq war that we went into and the Operation Enduring Iraqi Freedom. They don't really have the energy to try to jump into nothing. So they're trying to lay low. They also don't have passport relations with Israel. So your Israeli passport cannot get you into Iraq. Your Iraqi passport cannot get you into Israel, right? They ain't dealing with each other. Y'all better be happy Jordans in between us because otherwise it's on the pop. And that's kind of the way that they move. Then we have Kuwait. All right. Kuwait's right here. Now, Kuwait, they also have some smoke with Israel. They support Palestine. And their situation is we also have an invalid passport relationship. So passports from Kuwait cannot get into Israel. Passports from Israel cannot get into Kuwait. Now Kuwait, to me, is one of the smaller countries with a smaller military, but they do a lot of they love to do a whole bunch of trash talking because they know that the U.S. will back them, right? So this is the kid that's like 5'2", 120 pounds, and talks a whole bunch of trash to the guy that's like 6'3" because they got 10 brothers and sisters that will go and fight on their behalf. That's Kuwait. So it's like, what you want to do? You send something over here if you want to. I bet you somebody will back us. But then the U.S. is kind of like, well, we rock with y'all, but this is our priority. So y'all play nice, guys, please. That's the relationship, right? So then we have Bahrain, right? Where's Bahrain? I lost Bahrain on my map. Bahrain, where y'all at? Yeah, somewhere over here. Hold on, let me zoom in. Yeah, I know it's a smaller country. All right. Bahrain, right here. Bahrain, they're kind of friends with Israel, but again, they're not jumping in with nothing. Bahrain is the friend where you went to the club and you got beat up and you got jumped, and somehow they were in the bathroom the whole time, the whole fight, right? You getting punched in the face, dragged, they done drug you down the stairs, they are stumping on you, they throwing drinks on you, they done took the hookah, the little coal and threw it on you, they done burned you back, everything. You've been getting beat down for 8 minutes. And then after you land on the floor, mouth bloody, everything, here they come. Hey, bro, what happened? What? Missed everything. Somehow they didn't hear the DJ stop the music and tell everybody to disperse and security's coming and everybody break it up. They didn't hear none of that. They missed it all. That's Bahrain. They're not jumping in. They kind of just want to like lay low, right? And then we have Qatar, right? They do not F with Israel either. And they are technically the country that gave a lot of lifelines to Palestine as far as giving aid and support, right? That was their lane, right? Then we have the UAE, right? Where a lot of people go on vacation in Dubai, right? Over here. Now, the UAE, pretty cordial. They don't have any military operations or anything with Israel. They get a bit nervous about Iran because Iran is just across the water. Something goes down, they get a little nervous about a few things, but they do have some international commerce business because they got to use the little strait here where you can get all the ships and stuff to go through. But, they're not jumping into anything. Please leave us alone. Like, why am I in it? We're minding our business, right? And then you have Oman, right? Oman, they don't really deal with Israel either, but they are the advocates for peace. They just want everybody to get along, okay? They are the neighbor that's next door to the two neighbors that are beefing and setting each other's cars on fire because they're like, listen, you're bringing down the property values. I am a few years from retirement. I want to leave something to my kids. And I'm trying to get this house to appreciate. But every single time that y'all start throwing mud in each other's yard and not cutting stuff and putting bleach and salt in the earth and all this other stuff, you bring down the property values to my house. So I need y'all to chill. That's Oman. So they've been trying to keep it peaceful, right? And again, they also try to serve as the mediation between Israel and Palestine. So that's them. Then we have Yemen, right? Yemen does not effort Israel at all, right? Military beef. The United States has also invaded Yemen before. They got smoked. Yemen is kind of like, y'all better be grateful that we're way down here and y'all are way up there because otherwise we're tired. Like they don't deal with them at all, right? Then we're going to go over a little bit. We have Pakistan, right? Pakistan does not deal with Israel either. Now, the United States has never invaded Pakistan, but we have had drone activity there as well. We've also done a few little proxy activity in regard to things taking place in Pakistan. Next door, you got Afghanistan, all right? They also do not deal with Israel. Now, Afghanistan has been invaded by the United States. So, they're like, enough. We're tired of all of y'all. And then, of course, there's Iran, who, again, the United States kind of really fell out with after 1953, but really fell out with after 1979, right? So that's the relationships. So then, right, when you also take into account Hezbollah, Houthis, and Hamas, you realize that a country like Israel has a bunch of people who don't really deal with them. Let me pull the map back up one more time really quick, just to run this down. So you have Israel, who again, when you really look at it, they are surrounded by so many who don't deal with it. This whole region, right? Which is why the U.S. backs them with so much military support and sends billions their way, all because pretty much most of these people got smoke for this country, minus a handful of folks, right? That's the reality. And so again, when you have somebody like a Netanyahu who is in power, and he knows he can get Orange Man to do whatever he wants. He knows that if he goes and attacks Iran, if Iran does anything to Israel, the United States is jumping in. But this time, the United States didn't even wait. The United States just jumped on board too, right? And so, again, he's been trying to get to Iran since forever today because he knows the U.S. is gullible to do it. He wasn't going to be able to do it with Biden in office because it wasn't going to happen. He wasn't going to be able to do that with Obama in office, whatever. But Orange Man just lives in the moment. He never thinks anything long term. They just jump into stuff all the time. Doesn't matter. He'll go ahead and do it, right? And so here we are. Then we get to the actual attacks, right? Boom, come the attacks. February 28th. So Saturday, right? Israel also hits Lebanon, Beirut. Remember how I was telling you Lebanon does not deal with Israel? They were like, also, I know we just hit Iran, but Lebanon, y'all gonna get some of this too, right? Since you had something to say, we're gonna give you some too. So they gave some of them to them too, right? And so with these strikes and everything, there were over 500 targets that were hit from as far as coming from the United States and Israel, right? The Supreme Leader, Khamenei, I think that is the name, was killed. 5 to 10 top leaders from Iran were also killed. There was a U.S.-backed choice they were going to utilize to replace the Supreme Leader. That person too is dead. And then what I found interesting, I'm watching the press conference or the statement that Orange Man is making. The wildest thing is watching him go up there and say, "Oh, and there will be more casualties," and he's talking about U.S. troops. And so to watch this man go up here, just jump into some nonsense, right? Because everybody knew this day was kind of coming because they've been kind of hinting about it for the last 2 weeks in the media. You kept seeing these news articles saying, "Oh, strikes may happen as early as Tuesday. Trump is still deciding if they want to have strikes." And all of us are like, "What is the problem? Why are we so pressed to go over there and do any of that?" So to watch this man talk about, "Oh, there's going to be more U.S. casualties," and he's not even in the Situation Room. He made his own makeshift Situation Room at Mar-a-Lago because he's at $1 million fundraising gala on March 1st, and he has to get back to his party. So he's going to go and make this announcement and tell you that some more of your children are going to die in this random war that none of us have to be a part of. And then he goes back to partying. I was going to say electric sliding, but white people don't really be doing electric slide if they were born before 1960. So I don't know what dance they're doing over there. It's not the waltz either, because I saw how stiff they were during the first inauguration when they had the first dance. So I don't know what they're doing at their party. But Trump said, some of y'all kids going to die in this war. And then he went behind that black curtain and they went back to partying at his $1 million fundraiser. Crazy to me, right? Absolutely crazy. And then he told Iran, what else did he say? Lay down your weapons or face certain death, right? He calls Iran, this is your only chance for generations. He tells the people of Iran to take your government after this operation. Now, mind you, Iran already has enough stuff going on internally, but that wasn't our fight to jump into. So this whole idea of, oh, we're giving freedom to the people of Iraq and they were under a regime. And I think we also need to pay attention to the words that are often used. They love to throw the word regime, terrorism, all those kind of things. Understand that in the same way those terms are thrown in all these countries see us exactly the same way. If you don't think people say, oh, the Trump regime, because we're literally living under one right now, by the way, like with this nonsense and all these people in charge and a Pete Hegseth or whatever his name is. Yeah, okay. So anyway, Orange Man has claimed this is going to be something that takes place for 4 to 5 weeks, most likely. Now, Iran was like, okay, y'all want to blow our stuff up? All right, let's do it. Here we go. And so there have been retaliatory strikes. Now, this is interesting because it wasn't just Israel that got hit. Saudi Arabia gets hit. Bahrain gets hit. Qatar gets hit. UAE gets hit. Jordan gets hit. Oman, they're the peacemakers. They were like, we're just keeping the peace, right? They got hit. And most of these places that got hit is because there's some kind of association with either a U.S. military base. Remember, we have over 800 military installations all across the world, especially a lot saturated and centered in the Middle East region, right? And so, and Iran has, again, threatened its most offensive operation against the U.S. bases. So now all of our U.S. troops in this region are in danger, right? This is where it gets interesting. The U.S. was like, we blew up some stuff, and now we're ready for a ceasefire. Now that we've sent some bombs and blown you guys up, we're ready for ceasefire. You guys ready to talk? And Iran is like, no, let's go to the article. Iran said, y'all got us effed up. You think we're about to sit here and do, no, you ain't about to just keep blowing us up. And one of the main reasons was we did the ceasefire deal in June of 2025, where there was supposed to be peace after this. We all shot up each other, and then There was supposed to be all this peace and everybody leave each other alone. And then you guys reneged on the ceasefire that was there, because Iran technically never really did a follow-up attack after that June 25th attack. They let it slide. They said, we're gonna let y'all slide. Y'all just stay over there in stupid land, but don't do it again. And then here we go doing it again. So it's like, no, you don't get to show up talking about, oh, let's have a ceasefire now. So Iran is now saying, well, we're not done to have a ceasefire or anything until we're done with what we're doing. Here's the article. Iran rejects ceasefire negotiations while under Israeli attack. June. Wait, is this the right article? Oh, no, I'm sorry. We're going to stop that. That's not the right one I want. God dang it. Anyway, same message. So, again, all negotiations with regard to wanting a ceasefire deal and negotiations are off the table. Iran is like, there's nothing right now. They want to finish exactly what they have going. Nobody knows what that is at the moment because, again, the relationship is tarnished. And so there's not going to be a ceasefire. And so now it's changing because the administration just thought they were going to be able to just shoot some bombs and go back to sleep. They weren't expecting Iran to retaliate in the way that they retaliated, where now they've also brought 7 other countries into this. Iran is fighting 8 countries right now, technically 9 if you include the United States. They are fighting 8 countries on their own. And I promise you, I'm not taking the side of Iran and trying to just, whitewash and give them, a card to do whatever they want. I'm just painting the picture of cause and effect, right? You keep poking the bear. Eventually, the bear said, F this, let's go. As I have my peace shirt on, right? And so we have that. Now, this is where it's interesting because the narrative has continued to change a million times. So I'm watching this press conference with Marco Rubio and all these different things. Now, the narrative that has been told to us since day one, and any single time they want to go over to the Middle East and start a war, really to go and either take control of oil or some other resource that's going to enrich the United States and align with U.S. interests, or, again, align with the interests of Netanyahu and whatever it is that he wants to do, they always throw out terrorism, nuclear weapons. We've heard nuclear weapons, which is very funny because after that June attack, we were told that all of Iran's nuclear weapons and everything were obliterated. Because, Orange Man loves big dramatic. Were obliterated. Nothing that, like Sarabi and Lion King when she was cussing out Scar. There's nothing left, right? That's the way it was presented. Just obliterated. Done. So everybody's like, oh, okay, all right, well, I guess we can sleep better at night because they won't be able to build any weapons because we destroyed all of the facilities. Now, all of a sudden, the narrative changes to, oh, no, they are this close to building a nuclear weapon. And we have to get out there now because it's dangerous. And then you watch the Marco Rubio press conference today, and the narrative, now it's not even just nuclear weapons. Marco Rubio was talking about, oh, they have ballistic missiles. We're going to fight until those are going. I was like, whoa, hold on, pause for the cause. When did that become a part of the conversation? Because they've always had ballistic missiles. That's nothing new under the sun. That has never been one of the reasons why y'all had smoke for Iran. Because most of these countries got ballistic missiles, even the countries we don't get along with. A lot of countries that we have smoke for have ballistic missiles. So you don't get to all of a sudden change and move the goalposts and say, well, in addition to the nuclear weapons, because again, y'all story's not adding up, right? Tulsi Gabbard, a few months before the June attacks, or a few days before the June attack in 2025 said, Iran is not building any nuclear anything. They just, we did our investigations. We can't find anything. And then, Israel still attacked anyway. And then we jumped in. And then we fast forward. And mind you, that was the obliteration. That attack was the obliteration. Decimated. There's nothing left, right? That was what that was. Now, all of a sudden, in less than a year, they rebuilt everything and have these state-of-the-art nuclear weapons facilities that are ready to be just created, and we got to get them out of there. So in addition to the nuclear weapons that are allegedly there, now it's ballistic missiles, right? So the conversation becomes, well, we got to get rid of the ballistic missiles. In addition to their naval threat. I said, what? We are adding a whole lot to this list, right? Us, the American people, ain't heard nothing about a naval threat from Iran. We ain't heard nothing about ballistic missiles being a threat from Iran. We always just heard nuclear weapons. Now it's nuclear weapons, ballistic missiles, and naval threat, in addition to regime change. I said, y'all got a lot going on here. It is a lot going on. And then, Marco Rubio threw the word terrorist in there a few times because white folks think everybody's a terrorist that don't like them. And I said, you know what? Interesting. And so here's the reality. This is not going as planned. They didn't think they really were convinced this is going to be something real quick and be out of here. Now, God forbid this goes on and goes on. God willing, listen, hopefully, can y'all wrap this up by the end of the week, please? All of us, both Americans, I would say the people of Iran, but they're kind of sick of our ish at the moment. But I think people just want to be left alone and live their life, right? That's really the reality. The general public, those of us who are not world leaders, Those of us who are just trying to feed our families or get our education or just work our job or live our dreams, we are not trying to be pulled into this nonsense every year, right? When people tell and say, oh, the people of Iran are our enemies, I don't know anybody over there. I do know some people from Iran that live here that I'm cordial with. Hey, how you been? Good to see you. All right. Have a good day, right? I don't got no beef with nobody in Tehran because I don't know nobody over there. In the same way that they don't know who I am, right? So there is no beef. Like I say, let the world leaders go and duke it out in a room with some box cutters. May the best man win. Stop pulling us into this nonsense. It's kind of like the African proverb where when two elephants fight, it's the grass that suffers. And right now, the grass is suffering, the people, right? We've seen the school get bombed that killed all them girls. We've seen military troops die. We've seen mistaken friendly fire in Kuwait where they even shot down one of the jets. This wasn't even organized. And that's how you can tell they didn't even think this out, because you got goofy Pete Hegseth in charge. You got Orange Man, who's impulsive, who just moves in the moment. And then you look at this cabinet of incompetent white men. This is the best and the worst part about this whole DEI thing that they gutted. By them gutting all this DEI, pushing out all those black generals and officials and all these black people out of these positions and all these people who were not white men out of these top positions, and now it's nothing but incompetent white men and a few goofy ass white women that decided to ride the coattails in charge. We are just seeing just how bad y'all are at the bare minimum. Y'all can't do shit right. Everything y'all do, y'all have effed up. And it's the most entertaining thing to watch until you realize that, dang, I got to be collateral to this. Like, y'all don't know how to do anything. You can't even be bad people properly. Like, imagine that. So here we go. Marco Rubio also goes, and he's another one, because first of all, I know he's on. If it ain't coke, it's something. Let me pull up a picture of him, because he just looks like death as of late. And I think what it is, I think it's the guilt, because he knows he's on some BS, right? He has sold his soul to just be a part of some nonsense. And now it's like every time I see him, he just looks miserable. Like this is the perfect picture. Let me use this one. He just looks like, what am I gonna do after this? When this is out, what am I gonna do after this? I will never have any real friends again. My political career is over. I can never run for president again. Other Cubans hate me. A lot of white folks hate me. Black folks never dealt with me to begin with. I have nothing. All I have is I work for Orange Man, and I swear that I'm doing good work. And I'll continue to pretend to be a Christian and pretend that I care about the well-being of others as I sign off on the death of everybody else. I'm going to continue to endorse the foolery and the nonsense, but somehow I will force myself to sleep at night by taking Xanax and sleeping pills, and I'll do a line of coke when I wake up in the morning to have the energy to go and do these press briefings and get torn apart by the media, because I know I'm part of some bullshit. But I must hold on to power, because power is more important than integrity in my world, because I've been raised as a mediocre, entitled white man that can speak Spanish. And in my experience, power is everything. Since I have no real skills, since I can't really do anything, and since I couldn't even stand in front of those Parkland shooting victim students and say that I would do a little bit more about gun laws to the victims who watched all their friends get shot in the face, as a man, I couldn't even stand and face some 17-year-olds and give them an honest answer. I have a lot going on. That's Marco Rubio. Anyway, so here's the other thing. So Marco Rubio starts talking about, because everybody's saying, hey, this is a violation of Congress, because what happened to the War Powers Act? When Bush wanted to go into Iraq, even though everybody was mad, Congress said, let's go, except for 23 people who were like, no. Other than that, we went. Anytime there was supposed to be any kind of military action, you're supposed to go before Congress. Marco Rubio says, actually, presidents don't have to go before Congress. That's not a rule. He literally said this today, right? He said, because they will move goalposts. When it comes to white men, they will make up some new rules. That's why we got Orange Man back in office anyway. Think back to when there were all of the charges pending and the investigations, and all these folks were like, oh no, you can't charge a sitting president. Presidents have immunity. And the rules kept changing, and you just keep saying it enough times. The way that the system works, everybody will buy into it, and before you know it, nonsense. And even when Trump had the convictions in New York, and there was that last opportunity to have him really face the consequences of his action within 34 counts, what did that judge say? We'll give him a ceremonial sentence. I said, what the hell is that ceremonial sentence? I wish I would give me a ceremonial traffic ticket next time, DC, because they say, I got a $200 one I just had to pay the other day. Yeah, give me a ceremonial traffic ticket, right? Let me get that, right? When y'all be getting in trouble at work, let me get a ceremonial performance improvement plan. Let people get that, right? Ceremonial judgment. Anyway, We have 50,000 U.S. troops in this region of the world right now. We have 100,000 troops in Europe, and we have 6,000 troops in North Africa. The reason I say that is because, again, with these missiles and these weapons that are there, if things continue to escalate, Iran may not only keep their missiles aimed at just Israel and those other 7 countries or those other 6 countries they attack. They may say, while we're at it, just to ensure that we're okay, we're going to extend our arsenal and our attacks over to the military bases in Europe. Because if we go back to the map, let me put my map back up. Hold on, I got the wrong one. All right. If we go back to the map, listen, all this is the Middle East right here, but right here, we just go over. Here's Europe, and the bases, right? That's the reality. And this stuff really hits home for a lot of people because, again, the difference between a lot of the bases here and the bases here is that a lot of these bases have a lot of civilians that live there, where you have family. This is my whole, actually here, I'll show y'all where I used to live. Where's Vicenza at? I used to live right here, Vicenza, Italy, right? And I've told this story before, right? Now, by the time we moved to Italy when I was in 3rd grade, my mother and father were both in the army. My dad had already gotten out. My mother was still in. Now, the very last year that we were in Italy, that was 99. Now, mind you, we were just bombing Iraq in 98. But in 99, that was when everything was happening with Yugoslavia and Slobodan Milosevic, right? So Slobodan Milosevic decides to invade Kosovo. Guess what? This is the Adriatic Sea just across. Guess what country? It's changed because of boundaries, and they've changed the names and everything. But this region over here used to be called Kosovo, right? Let me see if I can pull up a map from like 1998 and Yugoslavia. Slavia, 1998 map. Okay. Right. So we're looking at this map right here. All of this was the whole Yugoslavia region, Kosovo, Adriatic Sea. Guess what's across the water? Here's Italy, right? So going back to this map, right? One of the reasons we had to end up leaving early was because the Italians were tired of us being in a bunch of mess because they were like, again, by NATO, it's kind of like one gets in a fight, everybody got to get in the fight. So when we talk about the alliance with NATO, if one NATO country gets into some drama, everybody got to jump in, right? Italy was like, Italy, like, we don't want to jump in this. Y'all already got the stuff going on in Iraq. Now y'all are right over here in this region blowing up stuff because this right here where Serbia is would have been where Yugoslavia is now, right? And then there's Kosovo, right? And what was ended up happening is as the United States is bombing all of this right here, and mind you, Bosnia is right here too. We had jumped into Bosnia back in 94, 95, 96, right? People are coming across the water and seeking refuge in northern Italy, specifically this region. So this is the Veneto region of Italy, right? So they're coming into this region, coming in here, also trying to get into Austria. The Italians were getting mad. So they started protesting outside of the military base every single day, every single morning. They protest outside the military base and the housing area that we lived in. Now, the housing area was not on the base. The housing area was like down the street from the base. So it didn't have the same protections and security as the actual base. And it got to a point where they had to start bomb sniffing our school buses when we went to school every day. And then we're on the bus riding to school and you're watching them throw eggs at the window and everything else. And then the protests got bigger and bigger. And it got to a point where we had to almost have a lockdown in the neighborhood where you weren't allowed to go outside because the protests were getting so violent. And they had like U.S. troops around the gates of the neighborhood. And that was kind of weird because my mom had to be one of the like security people monitoring the gate and everything. That was the first time I saw my mom with like I think she had an M16. I was like, oh, I didn't know you was living that kind of life, right? And so it got so bad, my dad was like, we're getting the hell out of here, right? And there were a lot of civilians that ended up just going back to the United States for safety reasons with their family. So again, this could become so much bigger, right? And like I said, when you're talking about that region in the world, you have all of these civilians that are everywhere. And then you also have all these U.S. troops. 50,000 people sounds like a lot. 100,000 people sounds like a lot, but it's not when that's not the home front. It's not when you're in somebody else's territory and you have to depend on your relationships with other countries in order for you to carry out whatever military missions you have. Now, where the other problem is, Orange Man has burned a bridge with every one of our allies. They don't like us, right? I already took, look, I'm going to keep pulling this map. This map, actually just keep it up the rest of the live. Let's go back to this map. Because first of all, we can just go to our own allies. Okay, we're going to go back down. Give me a second. We're going to go back over here. All right. Now, we told y'all, Turkey is was one of our allies. They're kind of our ally, but they're like, you know what? You know what, United States? Orange Man's doing a lot. Y'all doing a lot. Y'all let Netanyahu. We sick of y'all ish. We sick of y'all. So Turkey ain't really effing with us. So in the event that things expand or we have to utilize more forces, Turkey is probably going to be like, no, you can't bring none of that over here. What y'all already got here is what y'all can use. Nothing else. That's it. Right? We get over here. Now, this is a lot further because most likely if the war were to escalate and they needed to bring in reinforcements, they're going to pull people from here. Like a lot of the weapons, the jets and everything are going to be coming from bases over here while the troops are going to be coming from the United States, right? And so Germany is tired of us. You know we don't get along with France right now. Macron, whatever his name is, he is sick of our ish. Him and Orange Man go at it all the time, right? Germany, like I said, we have a lot of bases in Germany. Germany is like, we trying with y'all, but y'all got a lot going on. Italy's annoyed with us because Italy was one of the countries that was supposed to be managing the negotiations between us and Iran and Israel. And they're like, well, y'all playing in our face too, right? We trying to do our stuff, and here y'all go playing. UK is they a bit further out, but the UK is kind of, the people of the UK are tired of us. The UK leadership is kind of a little bit in the mud. Denmark, they're mad with us because of all the stuff going on over with Greenland that we're over here trying to snatch up. Like when I tell you we burned so many bridges, and so it's kind of like they over this mess. And so here's the reality. Y'all sit here and try to say that this man is the no-war president, and we bombed 7 countries in 2 months. We have bombed Venezuela. We have bombed Iran. We have bombed Syria. We have bombed Nigeria. We have bombed Somalia. We bombed Iraq, and we bombed Yemen. In 2 months, 7 countries. This is not something that can sustain itself because I'm trying to figure out where all this money is going. We don't have the money or even the size of a military because you done pushed out all the trans people. You done pushed out everybody, right? I mean, which is fine. Let these white men go out there and y'all go ahead and take a bullet for a change. Y'all want to fight so bad and be warriors? Go ahead. Since you got rid of Xena Warrior Princess, y'all want to be Hercules? Go for it. Enjoy. Show us that merit y'all got. Since the rest of us are too dumb and too stupid to do anything, y'all go ahead, have a good time. Enjoy. Have a great time. And it's kind of funny because when you get back, Trump gutted the VA, so good luck getting health care when you get back. Hopefully you still got all your limbs. I'm not trying to sound insensitive, but that's the reality. And so this is a man who ran on no war, right? This is a man who told us that if Killer Kamala got in there, she was going to be World War III. And a lot of y'all are buying into it, right? Because there's still going to be people who are like, well, if she were in, the same thing would be happening. I'm like, y'all love to try to hold on to something because you just don't want to acknowledge that, damn, we effed up. No, y'all going to take this to the grave and move. The goalpost is so far from where it's supposed to be, right? You got the kicker trying to kick from 600 yards when he initially started on the 30-yard line. We're not even in the field no more. We are at the rival school trying to kick it across the goal to the actual school on the other side of town. That's how far the goalpost has moved when it comes to how delusional folks want to be because they want to stay being right, especially you white leftists who want to do this moral compass police thing about Palestine. And I empathize and I'm 100% on board with everything that happened with Palestine was effed up and should have never happened. But the idea of making that the one issue while ignoring the oppressions of everybody else, and then now it's like y'all are silent on Palestine. Y'all ain't got shit to say. Be dead silent. It's really funny watching y'all go outside of what Kamala just had a book rally or something, for her book, whatever she was doing, literally the day before the attacks in Iran. And these folk killed Kamala. I was like, she lost. She's out of it. She is no longer a part of the equation, a part of the conversation. And even as vice president, there was nothing that woman was going to be able to do against her actual boss. Because my question is, for the same folks who had all the Kamala smoke, I don't hear y'all saying nothing about J.D. Vance, right? Go ahead. Where's the speech about how J.D. Vance can make Trump go and stop the nonsense in Iran? Where y'all at? Because y'all are silent, right? So the irony of still doing these random Killer Kamala protests and stuff where she's not in power, and we done went and bombed 7 countries, and y'all been silent on all 7 of them. They bombing fishermen, folks from Trinidad getting blown up catching fish, all in the name of a drug war. All this other stuff, it's crickets, right? I don't have time. Play in somebody else's face. So anyway, with that being said, we have now added, since January of 2025, 1.8, I'm sorry, excuse me, I had the wrong number. It's a little too low. $2.29 trillion to the national debt. Now, 1.8 trillion of that was just from 2025. The rest of it is already what we've gotten into 2 months into the year. All right? That's where we're at. And so again, we watched them cut down the military. VA funding cut by $2 billion, right? The same guy who was so patriotic and pro-troops and we support the troops, $2 billion cut from the VA. The VA was already underfunded. There's so many people, any veteran can tell you that waiting list to get help with the VA is so delayed, so backlogged, and now it's even worse because you got Doge in there. They initially wanted to cut 80,000 VA staff. After they got some pushback, they said, okay, we won't be as terrible. We'll only cut 30,000. And it's like, why are you still cutting the VA? They don't have enough, right? Anyway, there's that. And so you watch this man raise your taxes. You watch him put us into endless wars. We got smoke with 7 countries right now. And listen, We haven't even got to China yet. God willing, we can keep somewhat of a decent relationship. But China's kind of watching from the sidelines, like, all right, this would actually be the perfect time to go and kind of bother the United States because y'all are a little stretched thin. You got troops here, you got troops there, you got troops here, you got troops there. You're running out of weapons, you're running out of missiles, right? Because you give so much to Israel and you give so much to these places and you've wasted so many. Y'all got to go and start rebuilding these different things. But when we got to the space of them cutting down the government and laying off and riffing all these government employees, what did that end up doing? That affected a lot of defense contracting. So a lot of the defense contracting companies that had all these contracts with the federal government lost a lot of contracts to make. And I'm not trying to endorse weapons to go kill people. Y'all know I'm anti-war, but I'm just painting the picture here, right? And so a lot of these defense contracting companies, whether it be Raytheon or Booz Allen Hamilton or Northrop Grumman and all these other places, you know, they've lost a bunch of contracts, right? So they're not making and producing as many weapons because they had to lay off people. They had to lay off contractors. And so you watch all these people get fired and stuff. And just as all of these cuts are taking place, y'all want to go and poke 15 different bears and run behind goofy ass Netanyahu, who's not even in his country. He's hiding in Germany, right? You start all this stuff. Now your country's getting bombed and tore up because listen, that Iron Dome is going through it, okay? I don't know if y'all saw Meteor Man, but remember in Meteor Man when he had lost his little power and then I forgot who, it wasn't Sinbad, but it was a guy that looked like Sinbad. It was another character who was the bad guy who stole the meteor because it was like the meteor was kind of like vibranium in Black Panther. You needed the meteor stuff to get your powers. He had lost all his powers and the bad guy had took all the powers and he was beating Meteor Man down. Meteor Man, pop, pop, pop. I was like 4 years old, boo-hooing in the theater because I thought it was going to die. That's the Iron Dome right now. Iron Dome is getting tore up. You look at those pictures from Tel Aviv, you look at those pictures from Jerusalem, all this stuff is getting blown up, right? And so it's a hot mess over there. And so I just, boy, y'all know the United States, y'all thought you did your big one and y'all are finding out the hard way. This is not going to be something where it's just you go in there, blow it up and leave. This is not the 1990s anymore. I think what has happened is we have so many people in charge who think that the United States still carries the same international weight when it comes with military that it did. Honestly, I was going to say the 70s and the 80s, but we was out here embarrassing ourselves then too. But people, I think, love to romanticize like the Gulf War because it was like, 2 weeks and we were in and out and stuff was handled. They keep thinking that we're going to be able to just go and do that in all these different places. And that's how it's going to be. That's not how this works, right? And when you go and you destabilize governments, right, you create that vacuum for opportunities of other things to happen. Look at the place that we're going to, right? Look at what Libya used to be, right? Libya had it going on over there with what they had. They had a few civil rights violations, but when it came to the quality of life that they had, they were doing fine. What happened? We went over there, killed Gaddafi. Look at Libya now, all over the place. Look what happened with Iraq. Iraq is one of the poorest countries in the world as a result of our invasion, not as a result of Saddam Hussein, but as a result of our invasion and the fact that there was already somewhat of a civil war between the ethnic groups in that country. And here we go killing up everybody. While y'all fighting, we're going to kill another 800,000 of y'all. Destabilize your country. Look at Afghanistan. We go in there and we're talking about, we're going to fight the Taliban. We're going to make sure the women have their freedoms and their rights to vote and go to education. And look what's going on over there. All these countries that we keep going into, we end up in these long, extensive wars, or we destabilize what they have. We snatch the resources and then we jump ship. That's the reality. A hot mess. I have talked for an hour, so I'm going to stop, but we will see how this goes. I pray, right, to Black Jesus, that, God willing, some diplomacy can kick in. But where we've dropped the ball as a country is we have no more diplomacy. Orange Man is impulsive, and he's running with cuckoo Netanyahu, and the two of them could give two F's about anything. Because the other thing is, they're getting up in age. They ain't even going to be here that much longer, right? The way that Trump is moving, he might not be here next week at this rate. The way he talking about heaven, which he will not be going to, right? But they ain't even about to be here in a few years, right? Father Time is going to be calling them home soon enough. But we'll still have to be here to deal with the consequences of their actions that will affect us for the next 10, 20 years. That's where we're at now. The fact that, look at how our economy is going. It was already a shit show to begin with. Even before Orange Man got back in, even as much as I enjoyed the bounce back of coming out of COVID and what Biden and them were able to do, the economy still wasn't great then. The economy wasn't great during Trump's first term. The economy wasn't great during Obama's 2 terms. I'm not talking about like the stock market. I'm talking about just quality of life, because in reality, housing still skyrocketed. Wages never went anywhere. The cost of living is high as I don't know what. Younger Gen X, they got a short end of the deal. Millennials, we got a terrible end of the deal. And Gen Z, God, Jesus bless y'all, right? So you have 3 generations who are not going to have the quality of life that their parents had because of the choices of a lot of these old, shriveled up, racist ass white men who decided that power was more important than integrity, that power was more important than the livelihood of everybody else in the very country that they claim to love. And so all of us get to be collateral to their terrible decisions every year. And it just continues and continues and continues. And you deregulate, you put the big banks in charge, you put the big insurance companies in charge, you continue to expand the military industrial complex. And again, I am not anti-US troops. I am anti sending US troops to go die for some nonsense, right? I'd be so pissed if I got a call that I had a relative who just passed as a result of what happened this past weekend. I would be livid because, not to sound insensitive, what did they die for? Somebody honestly answer me that question. What did they actually die for? And was it rooted in something that was really about the safety of us or the world in general? No, this is the egos of a bunch of... All right, let me go to the chat. All right. And they think they slick. We ain't forgot about them Epstein files either. All right, I'm clearly not gonna be able to get to every comment because we've been here for a minute, but I'm just like, goodness, don't make no sense. All right, where are we at here? Let's see. Somebody said, you better lay low. Shout out to Whitney. Yeah, that's her to BT Awards. I'll talk about the Texas primary. That's actually my next topic, but give me a second. Somebody said lame duck, narcissistic president. Somebody said they were doing the honky tonk at his party. That's the dance they be doing. Like, okay. It's always funny when I talk to my mom. Like anytime my mom talks about a party or something, she always, first of all, my mother does not dance. Like she doesn't really have any rhythm. I don't know how I became a great dancer because neither of my parents can really dance, but my mother really has no rhythm. Like it's the weirdest thing to watch. And so anytime she talks about like going to a party or something, she's like, yeah, we was in there electric sliding. First of all, she doesn't know how to do the electric slide either, but she will talk about like the electric slide to her is the only dance she be knowing by name. And so she brings that up for everything. And like the electric slide to her is the boots on the ground dance. That's the cha-cha slide. That's the Cupid. That's all the shuffles in the dances. All of it's the electric slide to her. Yeah, we was in there electric sliding. And it's funny because I'm like, why do you say electric? We was in there just electric sliding. And I'm like, well, let me see you do it. Then I ask her to do it. Wait, what are you doing? Like, so that always cracks me up. But anyway, because I told y'all her favorite artist now is Shaq. You know, that's who she's discovered. She loves her some Mr. Boombastic. I said, Mama, you like 25 years late. But all right. So she said, Rubio was just repeating whatever Bibi and his friends wanted. None of that made sense. If you watched that presser today, mind you, I was taking a nap and I heard it in the background. That made me wake up like, what? I was taking a good nap too. I had like the nice heated blanket. Like, you know, you get that heated blanket and you make that little, almost like a cocoon when you wrap yourself tight in. Best sleep ever. Anyway, I heard him saying that. So I was like, what is he talking about? He's not even saying anything. Somebody said Rubio done aged 50 years. He looks terrible. And Rubio's not even that old. But that's the evil eating him up. See, when you were a person who tried to have an element of integrity and you sold yourself out for power and for a come up, you just start shriveling up, right? That's how it gets you every time. All right. And he ain't the only one. That whole cabinet, I know they in there doing all kind of angel dust and everything. All kind of pills they in there popping. Bunch of junkies. Oh, yeah. I'm glad you said that, Roy Nas 7902. The peace president. Didn't he just have his peace? What's the peace group? What were they called? The peacemakers? What's that group called? He did the Treaty of Peace. And then all the people he got in there are all the ones who want to start something with somebody. This is real peaceful, huh? Somebody said the U.S. is going to draft you first, Calvin. Nope, because I'm too old to get drafted. All right, I aged out. I think, I'm too, well, you know, they do anything they want to do at this point. They probably call me back, but I'm technically too old to qualify for the civil service at this point. So there's one plus about getting older. But you know, they'll do anything anyway. Even my mom or anybody who's like retired military, they can call you back up until 65, but you just be garrison, which means you don't go to combat. You'd be like working stateside, probably in an office or doing logistics or something like that. And my mom was 64, so she's like, let me make it to October. I was like, Mama, they're not calling you back. Let's see. They said that's because everybody who's running the show was born in the 1940s. Let's see. Somebody said y'all saw that mark on his neck. I did. I'm glad you had. Let's pull that up because that looks like I didn't know if that was shingles. Hold on. Let me see. Next. What is that picture? I don't know what he got. Yeah, let's. I saw exactly what y'all talking about. All right. If anybody got a weak stomach, just tread lightly. Yeah, this right here. I don't know if this is shingles. He don't be washing either because I heard he'd be smelling bad. They don't be washing and stuff, so he might have caught something. I don't know. But have your way, Lord. Have your way. Anyway, where we at here? Okay, I want to keep going. But like I said, I really, really do hope all this works out because I don't want to see anybody. Like, I wish there was a way you could just do the diplomacy, do the peace talks, find a common medium. But it's like that whole region, it's getting destabilized, and it will probably get worse if there is not something done to bring about peace. But Iran is going to be like, we gave the option, and we bought into the peace that y'all offered, and y'all reneged on it. So this is the only choice we got. And so I kept seeing some of the pundits saying this is going to go on until one side runs out of weapons or one side gets tired. I don't want to be on a side where I got to wait for people to get tired. Like we wrap this up now, right? Do you ever watch like when it's like Animal Planet and it's like the hair that's running from the cheetah or whatever, or the wolves or whatever, and that little hair just be running for like 10 minutes? I'm like, I don't want to be that kind of tired. That's some hard living. When I tell you I'm grateful to be a human and I don't got to deal with like some random animal trying to eat us every day. Because imagine you be kicking it with your friends and then I don't know, some animal comes to come eat y'all. Y'all got to split and run. You got to do this every day. Right? That's crazy. All right. Now, what I was going to say, Texas, act like y'all got some sense, please, with this primary, please. So Texas primary is technically tomorrow. Now, again, this is the primary for choosing the GOP candidate and choosing the candidate that will be the Democrat. Now, I haven't been paying attention to the GOP side, but I know Paxton is running, and Paxton, y'all know we don't F with him. Paxton is crazy. I forgot who he's running against, but both of them are terrible, in my opinion. And on the other side, you mainly have James Talarico, you have Jasmine Crockett. Now, I do want to say this because it's very, well, one thing first. The racism that has jumped out, all in the name of Jasmine Crockett, and people trying to pass it off as just a conversation of electability. White folks, I'm just letting y'all know we see y'all. That includes white leftists and white liberals. We see y'all, right? I ain't never heard so much about electability. But again, when I think of Planter out of Maine, I feel like it's crickets. Because remember, Planter is the guy who, let me actually, I think I had I always got an article ready. All right, this is the one that's actually ready. Let's go back to Planter real quick, and then I'm going to come back to Texas. I just want to, again, this conversation of electability, it's just funny how they pick and choose who they want to get behind or who they want to give the purity test to. Senate candidate Graham Planter addresses past Reddit post and controversial tattoo. Maine, Democratic Senate candidate Graham Planter is addressing the tattoo on his chest that some compare to a Nazi symbol in his past Reddit post. Planter admits when he made the Reddit post, he was angry, crude, and critical of others. That was when he was talking about black folks not tipping. He said he was still dealing with trauma after intense years of serving the war in Afghanistan, but this was the first he's heard of questions about his tattoo. He also said he charged the man after going to therapy. People can evolve and become different. I'm a proud person of who I am today. I'm not proud of the person I always was, but I don't get to be who I am today without that journey, Planter said. Planter posted a video apologizing for his past offensive Reddit posts, including one where he asked, why don't black people tip? And another where he said sexual assault victims should take some responsibility for themselves and not get so messed up they wind up having sex with someone they don't mean to, right? But they said, you're sort of blaming sexual assault victims for what happened. Your thoughts about that? You must find somewhat offensive. That was CBS 13 reporter Brad Rogers asked. And then he said, of course. And I made that comment in 2013. I had just come out of infantry, which was at that time all male. I rarely interacted professionally with women in the service. See, they got every excuse for being terrible people. And people give them these passes, and then they get to run for Senate. He said his view changed within a year after making that comment, after becoming friends with a number of female veterans. Oh, I'm not racist. I have black friends with stories of sexual assault in the military. I was very clear that I think military sexual trauma exists. And by the way, military has a huge issue with sexual assault. So this is very rich coming from him. And that needs to be taken seriously. And that I find it horrific, Planter said. Are you concerned with those posts that are going to keep cropping up? I fully expect them to throw everything at us. I expect people to lie. Yes, now you're going to be a victim. We're going to make it seem like everybody's putting things on you. As for the skull and crossbones tattoo on his chest, Planter said he got the tattoo along with members of his combat unit in Croatia in 2007 as a young Marine, and when he was drunk, and they picked out the image from the options on the wall. I'll tell you this, getting a tattoo will definitely sober you up. So I don't know how drunk he was. The tattoo recently has been compared to I don't even know if this is Totenkopf. You know, Germans, y'all got a weird language. I'm sorry, I ain't trying to be disrespectful yet. Totenkopf, symbol worn on Nazi uniforms. He said comparing it to a Nazi symbol was a complete surprise. He said 20 years, no one has ever made that comparison. And whatever. Anyway, so I'd say all that to say, you got him. There's no question about his electability. I'm not seeing him in the press, but when it came to Jasmine, they got every reason in the world why they don't want her. I saw the clip of the white lady crying who was like, I love Jasmine, but I know that we need somebody that can win, so I had to vote for Talarico. I said, dang, you couldn't even stand 10 toes down in the primary? Right? Okay, interesting. And so the biggest thing, so what I've seen with the two candidates as far as Talarico and Jasmine Crockett, Talarico, he's going after, his goal is he believes that he can convince a lot of Republicans to switch over and vote Democrat. He believes he can pull independent voters, he can pull undecided voters, and he can get the younger vote. That's his approach. To me, I feel that it's a dated approach because we've seen it happen time and time again, not even just in Texas, but even in general elections. My thing is this, whiteness moves in a really funny way, and white people are going to be white people. They're not shifted. I don't think you're going to get a lot of Republicans to shift Democrat, especially in the state of Texas. Texas is going to be Texas. Now, Jasmine's approach is, her thing is, rather than trying to pull the middle of the road voter who's just trying to find one reason not to vote for you anyway, why don't you try to get the people who are staying home, right? Because here's the thing. Harris County alone in Texas, right? That's that area, I want to say around, I think that's around Houston. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. You know, they had 2.6 million people who were registered to vote, and only 1,096,000 voted in the general election in 2024. So my thing is, even to her point, you fare better trying to excite the non-voter to show up to the polls than you would trying to get somebody who's actively not really your political ally, who doesn't share your same political views. But, you know, the hopes of thinking that somebody's so tired of the nonsense that's taking place, which they voted for time and time again, thinking that they'd be so tired of that nonsense that they finally shift to the other side in order to get some of the foolishness out of there, like a Paxton. I feel like you have more leverage just getting the non-voter. And it's also interesting that Talarico really hasn't really went and courted the black vote or whatever. And so, yeah, Talarico, he's running the moderate approach. That's his thing. My theory with that is that I personally think it's a little safe. I feel like this. If he were to win his primary against Jasmine Crockett, I don't know if he's going to win the general, because I think he's too GOP adjacent with the way that he's moving at the moment, where that's not really going to convince somebody who's already like the independent voter who's not really leaning Democrat, but kind of wants to be Republican, or the undecided voter who really most of the time they're Republicans, right? Or the young vote. I don't see that exciting anybody, because it's like Texas has run the same safe white man time and time again. If Beto O'Rourke couldn't win, and I thought he was a bit more exciting than Talarico, I don't know how that's going to go, right? Even when they try to push Wendy Davis, same thing. I don't know how that's going to go. If the tables were turned and Jasmine won the primary, either way, it's going to be an uphill battle. But I just personally feel that Jasmine would have a better shot at exciting the non-voter to show up, because she doesn't move in the same way as a lot of the safer politicians. Now, there's a lot of people who are like, I don't like her. She doesn't carry herself with class, or she's this, and you know how white people are going to be, blah, blah, blah. And then I'm like, this is where whiteness always comes into question. I'm like, white folks, if y'all are really, really that tired, you mean to tell me that if it's between her and the guy that has already shown you that he ain't ish, and I'm talking about the GOP nominee, whoever that's going to be, whether that's Paxton or the other guy, your whiteness is that strong that you'd still be afraid to just put Jasmine in if she was the Democratic candidate? Y'all are interesting. That's all I'm going to say. It's just, I don't know. Because again, even on a nationwide scale, you had 90 million people who chose not to vote in the 2024 general election. So, you know, there's a bigger conversation about what is that can get people excited, not even excited, but just the energy to just go to the poll and check the box. I already told you, voting is not a marriage. It's not rocket science. It's literally, you just check the box. That's it, right? And half the machines, you ain't even got to check them. You push a button and it check it for you. But you got people who are like, everybody's all the same, or everybody is whatever. I'm not wasting my energy with it. And to me, I just feel like there's nothing about Talarico that I've seen yet that would make me, if I was a Texas voter, be like, ooh, let me get excited. If I was a non-voter and I was over the system, there's nothing he said yet that would make me want to run up and rally behind him, especially after I saw him talk all that crap about, oh, well, why don't we, to paraphrase, his thing was like, you know, bridging the gap between like people who are extremely on one side of the political spectrum, and then like white nationalists. If we can just come together, I'm like, see, y'all be trying to break bread with everybody. That's where y'all be messing up at. I'd rather you be 10 toes down with where you stand. I made like Orange Man get on my nerves, but he lets you know exactly who he don't like, so you know exactly what you're getting. Texas, we'll see how it goes. Primaries tomorrow. Either way, I think it's gonna be ugly. And I think it's also interesting what I think will happen. In the event that Talarico wins, I feel like most of the Jasmine Crockett supporters would still support Talarico specifically because they don't want Paxson or that other guy to get in. But I don't know if I can say the same about if Jasmine Crockett were to get in. I feel like you'd have a lot of Talarico supporters who would be like, I'm just not going to vote. Or I'm going to vote for the Republican guy to teach the lesson, because we've seen that happen many times. Makes me kind of think of some of that Bernie bro energy. So we'll see where that goes. All right, let me read some comments, and we're going to keep it moving. By the way, when it comes to a lot of these elections, because again, Texas is already an uphill battle. Texas is red, but people are saying it's purple, and there's a shot. Lovely. The reason I keep harping on the non-voter is because really for somebody or for a Democrat to win, they just have to win within the margin. You don't even need a landslide. You just got to win within that margin. Think back to when Orange Man won Michigan in 2016. He won Michigan by 11,000 votes. That's within the margin, right? That's not a whole lot. He didn't need it. Literally, the margins are the deciding factor between a lot of these races. And so the idea of exciting those people who were like, I don't buy into this system, it's a bunch of BS, convincing them to say, listen, I want you to fight for yourself in this moment. Fight for what it is that you think you deserve, right? And my other thing too, because we're now in this era of the purity test. It seems like the purity test only gets dropped on the black women candidates, but this purity test where people want like this perfect candidate. I keep getting these comments on these lives where people keep saying, especially the Palestine disciples, who are like, all Kamala had to do was, push for the ceasefire and I would have voted for it. And I'm like, if that's all she had to do, then you would have voted for it, because that meant that you knew you had leverage to get her to do and get what it is that you wanted. So instead, you chose to vote for Cuckoo Man, who's now building the Gaza Riviera. Make that make sense, right? If all she had to do was that one thing, and listen, y'all voted however y'all voted, it is what it is. We're here now. Again, this idea of all she had to do. I'm like, so it was just one thing? That was it. One thing. That's it. That means you could have voted for that person, right? If there's a candidate that I'm on the fence about, and if there's 20 things that I want, and there are two candidates running, one candidate is only doing two of those things and is like, the hell with you with everything else you want. The other candidate, maybe and like I said, I got 20, maybe they're only doing 10 of those things, and I'm still not happy. But I know that I have more leverage with that person who's at least doing those 10 things, because one, they need my vote, and second, I'm still getting 10 of the things that I wanted. I didn't get all 10, or I didn't get all 20, but I'm at least getting 10. 10 is better than 2. And a lot of you folks chose 2 over 10. Anyway, let me read the comments. Bunch of nonsense. Somebody said no smoke for him. Exactly. I ain't heard no. I don't ever hear no JD Vance smoke. I don't hear no where's JD Vance. Where's it? They was whacking the lady when she was in the VP seat, but JD Vance gets to just go up here and do anything. Interesting. Miss Ninja Cat, that is funny. Is the Dow over 50,000? What is that from? Who was the person that said the Dow's over 50,000? What was that from? Was that the press secretary? I forgot. That is funny. We just gonna keep using the Dows as an example to mute everything else. Somebody said, not shady, your mom's dancing. She can't dance. She be cooking me all the time. You should hear my mom when she started talking about my music. I feel like, you know what? And my mom was like, so she I think she had put on my After Yesterday album. She's like, I put it on and I heard the moon, the star. I was like, wait a minute, I ain't got no songs that sound like that, but whatever. So yeah, me and my mom be cooking each other. We be going at it, right? I told her the other day she does not know how to take a picture with her phone. Like, she be driving me crazy because like she's now into like fashion and stuff, so she likes to take pictures of her outfit, but she does not. I've told her a million times, okay, mom, if you're gonna do the outfit, like you get the phone in the bathroom mirror and you get the full body, but instead she'll make it front facing and then try to get her whole outfit from the front facing. And then, prime example, I'm gonna show you the last picture I got. I was like, mom, what am I looking at? This is the last picture she sent me. I said, mom, what am I looking at? This is supposed to be the outfit. I was like, if you just stand in the mirror and you can get the whole thing. I thought this was a towel or something. I was like, what am I looking at? And then she wanted to show her shoe. She got a red bottom. All right, mama. Ew. But like I said, mind you, she don't listen. So we be going at it. Like, she be driving me crazy because she talks so much trash and it be the most simple thing and she be struggling. I'm like, all right, mama, whatever. Anyway, let's see. Tyler said, I'm unable to go into the military. Count your blessings. And this is not a diss to anybody in the military. I commend and respect anybody who is willing to take a bullet for my livelihood. That is a commendable thing. And it's not an easy choice, right? You are willing to go and literally sacrifice your life for people who aren't even grateful, for people who disrespect y'all and drive past you on the freeway when you're a Vietnam vet and disabled and they won't even give you $1. They close that window, right? Get to that red light, folks be looking straight because they see the person in the window. Just straight, right? Be trying to adjust that radio, right? I always will commend anybody who goes and makes that choice. Somebody said, is Talarico not more progressive? I don't really see him as that. And honestly, I feel like, because even in the conversations with like Palestine, he and Jasmine have very similar stances on Palestine and everything. But that there's a lot of things they're very similar on. But for me, he drops the ball on race. It's not even close. He's not even trying on that. And then for me, we've already seen Jasmine's track record. That's just me. I'm not a Texas voter. The people of Texas will choose what they want. But the reality is it still affects us because the Senate, this is technically a statewide election that will affect the Senate. So those votes that take place, who knows? If we end up after the midterms, if we have a midterms, if it's a really, really tight Senate where it's like, I don't know, 48 to 52 or 49 to 51 or, real close, you're going to want to pray that you got some candidates in there who got some fire behind them. You don't want a bunch of Fettermans because, again, people tried to warn y'all about Fetterman. Or not y'all won't hear understand, but people tried to warn a lot of Pennsylvania voters about Fetterman, and they're like, no, he's progressive, and look how he's moved. Fetterman is one step from turning into Mansion and Cinema, right? Anyway, thank you, Roy Ross 7902. That was there. Let me know that was Houston when I was asking about Harris County. Somebody said Republicans are not scared of Talarico. It's a front to make him look like an underdog so he can get beat by their candidate. It just takes attention off Crockett. Yeah, and that's my thing. I really don't know what's going to happen in Texas. I kind of think Jasmine's going to get the edge, but then again, I don't trust white folks because again, I remember when Biden dropped out, and I remember saying they are not going to put a black woman in there. It is not going to happen. But then as we got closer and closer and closer, and by the time she had done the speech on the national mall, I was like, oh, I think she actually might take it. Okay, it might be a thing. And then surprise, nope. So I don't know. But I'll say this. Talarico would be better than whoever that GOP candidate is if he's the person who gets it. And then Texas, if it's between Talarico and Paxton or whoever that guy is, y'all better push and get a Talarico because even though Talarico may not necessarily align with everything I see, that'll be way better than the other choices. That's just how I see it. But anyway, we're going to see how that goes. All right. Now, let's talk about some double standards, ladies and gentlemen. All right. So I was kind of MIA when everything happened with the Bafta Awards and Michael B. Jordan and oh my God, I'm forgetting the name. Delroy Lindo. I kind of was MIA, but I've been paying attention to the entire discourse, right? So remember, you had the Baftas over in the UK, the awards show, and you had the man John Davison, who was there for promoting his documentary about having Tourette syndrome and everything else like that. We end up seeing the clip where he's having his outburst. He ends up saying the N-word while the two black men are on stage. Now, he had already been having outbursts and saying all kinds of slurs and things the whole day, right? But for some reason, the BBC and BAFTA chose not to mute out the portion where the N-word was spoken, right? And so it finds its way on social media and it becomes a part of the conversation. So here's my 2 cents. And I think Jamie Lawson said it perfectly. So I'm going to go to her clip first, and then I'm going to go ahead and say my 2 cents on it. Because I think she worded exactly what I was thinking. So give me 1 second. Let me turn this on and shift this back. All right.
After Bafta, did you talk to your cat? Anything?
I absolutely talked to them.
Oh shit! I don't think y'all can hear this.
A big shout out to Mike and Delroy. Like, let's continue to honor them for how they handled that in real time.
I don't know if y'all can hear
this.
this.
And the dignity that they exercised, and the whole home team, everybody that was out there, like. really carried themselves well. I think the events this weekend exposed a couple things. Institutionally, we still don't understand what inclusion means. Just because you invite someone into a space, but you don't provide the necessary resources to keep them and everyone else in that room safe by them being there, that's not inclusivity. That's exploitation. That man's disability got exploited that night. And it led to multiple offenses. That's the Baptist fault. And then the BBC, to air what they aired, right, is careless. And not like some haphazard act. No, like a real lack of care was exercised for those two Black men. And we know the BBC knows how to take care of what they care about, right? Because they censored a bunch of other. They went so far as to make sure certain things weren't topics of conversation. They censored Akinola's speech, the director of My Father's Shadow, which is an amazing film, by the way. So you censored one Black man. You failed to protect two others. And our production designer, Hannah, you do not care for our dignity, our humanity. You want to celebrate our art, but you won't protect. And that's why we celebrate sinners. That's why we celebrate Ryan. That's why we show up to the NAACP. Because those are spaces where we felt safe, where we feel safe.
When I tell you that was so beautifully worded, I was like, I could have said that better myself. Just gorgeous and smart. That's right, Jamie. So yeah, I share the same sentiments because my thing was, one, a lot of the sympathy that I did have, because I saw the conversations. You know, the word ableist got thrown out every 2 minutes, and everybody, again, all of a sudden, what I find so funny is people will vilify Black folks for feeling some kind of way every single time. And the issue that I had with that is, I was like, you guys are erasing the fact that there are Black people who have Tourette's. And what I keep seeing is every single time something happens and Black people respond or feel some kind of way, you erase us out of the conversation, erase us out of the picture, and make it seem as if whatever the issue is does not also affect us and that we don't get to have a say or have agency about how we feel about certain things. And so, yes, for people who had questions, like, it is interesting that would be the word that comes out. No judgment on the condition, because if that's the condition, that's the condition. But again, the follow-up actions, right? How Bafta moved, how BBC moved, and then the apology that never came. You watched John Davidson release a full statement, very well thought out, a few paragraphs, and there was no mention of an apology towards towards the Black community, towards Delroy, Lindo, or Michael B. Jordan. And that's why I lost any sympathy I did have for him, because I was like, I get that has to be frustrating where you can't control what comes out of your mouth in these spaces, right? I fully empathize with that. I understand, right? And so the one ask that was there was, can you at least apologize? And it's not even trying to apologize for you having a condition, but apologizing for the fact that even though you can't control your condition and you may mean well, I don't know his whole backstory like that, but it still made somebody else uncomfortable. Somebody else had to be on the receiving end of something and then be burdened by the discourse and the dialogue, because this started a whole diaspora war, everything. And so it always makes me think back to even with my cousin Michaela, who had Prader-Willi syndrome when she was still alive. Prader-Willi syndrome is a condition that affects a few things, right? One, your body never knows when it's full. So you're always hungry. Your brain, there's something that doesn't connect. If you're not careful, you can sit and eat yourself to death at a table. And so with that, you're always hungry. You also don't really have a metabolism, so everything that you eat stays on you. In addition, it does affect your development. So mentally, like Michaela was 21 when she passed, but she probably had like the mind, as far as behavior, of maybe a 5-year-old. Like there's things where she could be just like everybody else. Like she could read and write to an extent. There's lots of things she could understand, but there's some moments where she would move like somebody who's like 4 or 5 years old. And there's some elements that kind of showcase certain traits with Down syndrome as well. And so I say all that to say, and in addition to that, and then you also a lot of times have to take growth hormones because you have really small hands and really small feet and your organs don't develop properly. So you take the growth hormones so that your organs can fully develop and that, you can get bigger hands, bigger feet, because a lot of them are also shorter. Like I think she was 4'8" or 4'9", right? And because of her condition, I think when she passed, she was about 400 something pounds. But I say all that to say, when it came to somebody like Michaela, even though she could not help her condition, there will be moments where as a family, we may have to apologize for a way that she may have behaved in public because she can't help it, but we don't want other people to be uncomfortable as well. And it's not trying to make her seem like she is a problem or anything, but it's just understanding how to read the room. So one of the things we always knew, like if we went to a mall, we knew we could never come in on the side by the food court, because she'd have a meltdown. She'd have a tantrum because just the smell alone. Because think about the mall, right? Food in the mall always smells good. It don't hit the way it should, but it smells better than it tastes. But the mall, you got the cookies, and y'all know in the DMV, if you go to well, I don't think he'd be in Iverson Mall like that. But that Forestville Mall, Iverson Mall with the snickerdoodles, like the smell alone, right? So anyway, when we be in Savannah, like if we went to Oglethorpe Mall or Savannah Mall, the smells alone from like the Chick-fil-A, the McDonald's, and the dessert places, all that stuff just smells heavenly. If it smells heavenly for us, what do you think that is for somebody who's always hungry? And so if we weren't careful, she would have a tantrum in the mall if she could smell everything. Right now, she's gonna lay on the floor. Can't none of us pick her up. Now somebody else has to maybe come and help us and everything. Now they're throwing their back out and all this stuff. I'm not trying to be funny, but that's the reality. And so, or sometimes she would have an outburst as well and say certain things she learned at school, right? And all kind of terms. And I didn't heard cuss words I ain't never heard before, right? So there's that element of at least apologizing in those spaces to make sure that nobody who may have been offended or nobody who may have heard something that is offensive to them feels targeted. And the fact that he couldn't even do that. And then you watch all these white folks run in and try to vilify black folks and make it seem like we're insensitive or we're ableist or we don't understand. And that's the problem. And it took a point where we fast forward to the NAACP awards, because I'm going to still say NAACP. I don't know where this NAACP came from, but NAACP for me, mama named it NAACP. That's what I'm going to call it. You saw that Michael B. Jordan and you saw that Delroy Lindo were celebrated, right? Regina Hall made her statement. Everybody gave them a standing ovation, right? We saw like they won the award. Viola Davis. She said Deion Cole had a joke here and there and everything. And you watch all of a sudden people turn Michael B. Jordan and Delroy Lindo into the problem and start saying, oh, a bunch of wealthy millionaires crying about being victims. Like you watch them all of a sudden they gotta somehow be in the wrong for being called the N-word. Mind you, they didn't say anything, right? Because I've always said, one of the things that's always happened with us is we're burdened by the element of poise in all situations. When the police shoot our children in the faces or whatever because they fear for their life, we're burdened by poise. They want us to forgive, and they want us to forgive in front of everybody. Remember, between like 2014 through about 2017, I'll backtrack. Even when you had the Charleston 9, right? One of the first questions they started asking those members after their family members were slaughtered in a church, do you forgive the killer? What? Excuse me? First of all, if I choose to, that's between me and what's going on in here, and spiritually and internally, it ain't got nothing to do with you. And if I announce that I do, what is it supposed to do? And if I announce that I don't, what you gonna do? Because there's nothing you can say to make me feel bad about somebody killing my family member, right? So we've always been burdened by the element of poise. Right? So when they would go in and they would kill a Mike Brown, or they would kill a Sandra Bland, right? Or a Tatiana Jefferson, or one of these people, then they would want us to be peaceful. And they wouldn't want us to go out in the streets. They want us to come together and kumbaya every single time. And so that drove me crazy as I kept watching all of the smoke that Michael B. Jordan and Delroy Lindo was starting to get. People were getting mad that they were being celebrated at the NAACP awards. And it's like, here's the reality. And just like Jamie said, the BAFTAs were not a safe space for us that night. NAACP awards were, and they were celebrated, they were uplifted, and guess who got pissed off? I'm like, first of all, why are y'all in our business? That award show ain't even for y'all to begin with. So there's that. And so it's like, you're going to be mad that these people were celebrated, and that's the thing, right? You weren't protected in that white space. So in a space of community, which is what I've been talking about for the last year and a half, when I say we're going to have to learn to be in community, we're going to have to learn to have some discernment, right? Folks want to be mad, right? And so what else was I going to say? My goodness. Like I said, I was really trying to be on the sympathetic train, but once I saw the apology and there was the blatant effort to leave out the people that really should have got the apology, I was like, you know what? You can have it over there. You over there in the UK with the crumpets and tea, enjoy, right? And so the thing is this. We are still and have always been the one group that everybody disrespects, right? But we're expected to give grace to everybody else all the time. And that is draining. And I think the worst of it is, because to be honest, especially for white folks, I am tired of y'all pretending to be good people, right? Y'all love to be the morality police, and y'all latch into every element of anti-blackness that's out there. The way that y'all vote, the way that y'all move, the things y'all get behind, the things y'all allow. Y'all will sit there and turn a blind eye to your racist ass family members, and you won't. It's just like all the things that really matter, y'all are silent on. But then every now and then y'all get this self-righteous come to Jesus moment and want to pretend that y'all all of a sudden care about the well-being of whatever it is that you get behind. And then again, it still tends to be black folks being collateral. That's the funniest part to me of all of it, right? And so I'm just like, here's the reality. That documentary that John Davidson had pretty much showcased to talk about his experience with having Tourette's It wasn't because of the actions of Black Americans, right? It wasn't because of what we had done as a collective to him, because one, we don't live in the UK, right? This was as a result of the actions of his friends, his peers, his family, right? The people around him, the colleagues, his associates, the experience of being around other white Brits who mocked and made fun of him and everything else like that. And that's what the documentary was about. So how did it go from them doing what it was that they did to him to somehow we're the aggressor, we're the insensitive group, we're the ableist group, we're the this, we're the that, and all this stuff, because we got called the N-word on international TV. And the networks didn't bleep it out. They allowed it to stay while they bleeped out everything else. The goalpost, y'all will move a goalpost. Y'all will move a goalpost. Y'all keep moving it, but y'all keep pretending to be good people. And for some reason, especially for white women, for some reason, when y'all put on that bandana, you can't tell y'all nothing. All of a sudden, y'all swear y'all are Mother Mary. And then y'all still be behind a bunch of nonsense and foolery every single time. Like when I tell you, I don't have it, right? And again, it's interesting how Black people who have Tourette's were erased out of the conversation. It just turned into Black people are insensitive and blah, 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 blah. And then folks would start talking about rap music. Like, y'all use it in the goalposts, moving it again. Y'all trying to kick a field goal from a school way down the street all the way to a different school on the other end of town. Y'all can move the goalposts as much as you want, but people see through y'all. Like, this is the era of, I think people are just over all of it. Over the performativeness. Y'all can be saying y'all gonna do one thing, and then when it's time to really do it, y'all don't, or y'all flake, or again, you latch onto whiteness. That's why I even say, again, like when it comes to like white liberals, white leftists, white progressives, thank you for what it is that y'all do stand behind, but in the back of my mind, at the end of the day, y'all are still white folks. And so I have to take everything y'all say with a grain of salt, and I more so pay attention to what it is that y'all do and how y'all move, right? It's just the reality of what it is. There's no reason why y'all are sitting here painting these two men to be the enemy of anything because they got called a slur. The smoke should have been for Bafta. Smoke should have been for BBC. Y'all said nothing to them. And again, they barely said anything because some other folks might have came off that stage and started swinging. They just, again, kept it moving. Again, burdened by the element of poise every single time. And even when we have poise, it still ain't good enough. Folks be mad. Let me read some comments here. Tyler said, I think both candidates, Talarico and Crockett, have their issues, but they have their strengths too. Yeah, I agree. Pam Bondi, that's who said that the thing was at the 50,000 mark at the stock market. Thank you. Which is now, I think, is at 48 something thousand as of today. Marco Rubio. Okay. Whoever it is, man. Somebody said your mama's old school like my mama. Yeah, she old school. She looks a lot younger than her actual age. My mom could probably pass for being like early 50s, late 40s, but she is an old lady at heart. What up, Raywin? Somebody said Jamie Lawson's so fine. She's very gorgeous in that red. That red looks. People look good in red. People look good in red, right? Okay. Somebody said I deal with ADA and accommodations every day in my industry. The goal is to adjust so the disabled person can have the same access, but not at the expense of others' comfort. He should have been in a viewing room. And I don't want to sound insensitive, but my question would be if because from what I was watching and reading from different things they're saying, like a lot of times being in quiet spaces does trigger some people, and that's when they have the outburst. And my question becomes, what do you step out temporarily? What do you do? Or do you sit in a segment of the auditorium where if you do have an outburst, the sound is not going to carry all the way into the mics to get picked up? I don't know. I have no idea. The reality is, like I said, BAFTA, BBC, it should have been muted. It should have been in there. You muted everything else. Why did you allow that to stay? They know what they're doing. And I feel like, if anything, it brought attention to their award show and ratings and viewings because everybody's going to go and Google and everything like that. So there's that. And now it's like, I don't know. Somebody said, have you seen the Barbs and MAGA are attacking Deion Cole because he called Nicki Minaj out at the NAACP Awards? I did see some of that. I done told y'all my thoughts on Nicki. I'm just going to say this because I did see they were like, oh, you're attacking a black woman and so on. Now, listen, the joke to me wasn't really funny at all, but I'm going to say this. You don't get to, how do I word this? The community is no longer obligated to protect you when you choose to move against the community for your own individual come up at the expense of that community by aligning with a politician or somebody in power who's actively working to dismantle the gains of said community, right? An administration that has fired all these black federal workers. We've watched 300,000 black women lose their jobs. We've watched all of the executive orders that were placed against diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility, where a lot of black folks have lost their jobs. We watched what's happening even with the data centers and the deregulation that has now allowed a lot of these centers to be placed in black neighborhoods. And I'm going to get, that's actually, I think, my next story. We've watched, you know, the taking down of memorials that honor black veterans at the expense of this administration. And so when you choose to align with some nonsense, the community is not obligated to protect you anymore. And you've made your decision. And so you chose to be an individual. You chose to make your come up or do whatever you did at the expense of everybody else. You went in front of all the white folks at the turning point thing and told black women they need to be nicer to white women, right? They need to be nicer to white women, all these other crazy things. Somebody sent me a random clip because, you know, Twitter has the little spaces where it's like people talking. You can hear people having conversations. And I guess she was on there with the fans. And it was this clip of one fan who was saying times have been really hard. I don't know. I think they lost their job or something, but they were saying like, oh, you know, with this current administration, and she hung up on the person or muted or went to whatever. So how do you expect people to respond when you go against the collective? You were kind of on an island by yourself. In the same way when Omarosa did all that nonsense, I was on here dragging Omarosa and folks were like, oh, I can't believe you're attacking a black woman. No, we're not doing that, because what she ushered in ended up causing more harm to black people collectively than my random 2 cents about what I thought about Omarosa at the time. Right. And I think it's more disappointing when there's people who know better. And I feel like somebody like Nikki knows better. That's why I'm like really disappointed with her. And some people saying, well, there's more grace being given to the men than the women. I'm like, I feel like all of them be catching it for me. It's just once you go against community, and especially when you align with some nonsense, you get no protection, no favors from me. That's what Stephen A. Smith. I should have did a segment on him, but I got tired of talking about his goofy behind. Like, no. So it is what it is. At that point, fair game. I know that sounds insensitive, but you know, like I said, I didn't think the joke was really funny like that. But you know, you should expect to probably be the butt of a joke when you've been out here just acting a plumb fool for the last however long. Like, what are you doing? Do better, right? Okay. Somebody said they didn't recall the Fetterman warnings. So with Fetterman, the story had come out about him pulling that shotgun out on them black folks, right? But this is when he was still doing his primary, but he ended up winning, and then it went on, and it was like, well, I got to get a Democrat in there, so he ended up winning the whole thing. But yeah, there were lots of folks who were like, he's not the one at the time, right? Somebody said, love those Iris and Moss snickerdoodles. Listen, that's the only reason I be up in there, being there in and out. Let me go ahead and get a few of those. Azure 0819 said, Warner Brothers even contacted the BBC to have the slur removed before it was broadcast. It was on a 2-hour delay. I didn't even know that part. Thank you for telling me that. They never did. Y'all had 2 hours to get it right. They said, leave it in there, right? Okay. You're supposed to be playing in our faces, man. Make it make sense. Jeremy Borbo 502 said, what you say, Calvin, makes sense though. I feel that they use the John Davidson to create hatred in subtle war ways. Like, I feel like a lot of times, yeah, sometimes they will kind of, you know, add some fuel to the flame, or fuel to the fire, or fuel to the flames, because again, it's going to bring publicity. And then fast forward to next year, when you hear the term Bafta, they might get some more viewers. People are going to want to see something. Remember when the Oscars messed up and they said La La Land had won Best Picture, but it was really Moonlight? Like, who's to say that didn't happen on purpose, right? And that it wasn't something that would bring buzz. Now, people were saying, oh, there was a confusion with the envelope and the lady, she, you know, it is what it is. Or think back to that BET Awards in 2010, where they had the competition. This is when 106 and Park was still on the show, and they had the competition to be able to read the Viewer's Choice Award. And so then they had that girl up there, and she's standing there. You got Terrence, Jay, and Roxy behind her. Roxy's looking, and it was a Viewer's Choice, and I forgot who all the candidates were, but I know for sure Rihanna and Chris Brown were in there. And so the girl, I think, said the winner is either Chris Brown or Rihanna. She said one of them. And then everybody was like, huh, what? And then, oh, okay, the winner isn't. And she said the other person. And it seems like either the teleprompter said one thing and the envelope said another, and she did whatever she did, but then she ended up looking crazy, but it brought all this controversy. Like, I feel like sometimes there are moments where maybe some of that stuff is done intentionally to bring buzz and bring conversation, especially now in this era where we are no longer a cable-consuming society, right? Even when you watch, like, I know the rules in the United States are this when it comes to streaming. If, like, Abbott Elementary comes on Wednesdays, right? If you DVR, if you're a cable person, if you DVR Abbott Elementary, or you have Hulu next day and you watch Abbott Elementary and that's your show, you have 48 hours to watch from the time that you record it or from the time that the next day episode airs in order for it to count in Nielsen. So there's a window, which means that if there's something that's not live and something crazy happens, like, I don't know, Chris Rock getting slapped at the Oscars and everybody's talking about it, and you DVR the Oscars, you may go back and watch the Oscars to see that slap, or you may go on Hulu next day to watch the Oscars to see that slap, and boom, here's an increase in the ratings. Not saying that that's what happened, but that could be a possibility. It's one thing to think at. So no one should watch any CBS programming anymore. I've been done with CBS. Once that West lady got up in there, there's nothing on CBS I watch anyway. The only show I did watch on CBS was Big Brother. And I haven't watched that one since they had the season with the cookout, when it was all the black folks that got together and had an alliance that nobody knew about. I was like, that was brilliant. Y'all better get it. I know that's right. But yeah. All right, let's see. Okay. Actually, I got one more one I want to do where I cut some people out first. All right, so we've seen this story coming out of Hunter College with Allison Friedman, right? Because again, we talk about folks being on code. So let me pull up this video. And then we are going to talk. Did I even download the video? Hold on, wait a minute. Let me make sure I got it first. While I'm over here promising something that's not here. Do I have it? Do I have it? Oh, okay, I do have it. I just didn't put it in the folder. No. All right. All right, folks. Let's go to this video.
Foreign policy is, for me, is our speech program. I've been receiving speech services since first grade. I attend for Bowman and 2 other students on Friday. He delivers lessons and helps us fit those skills into our lessons.
What school is that like there? They're just, they don't know they're in a bad school. I mean, but President King said it. Like, if you train a black person well enough, they'll know to use the back. You don't have to tell them anymore. They just,
Allison Friedman, what you're saying is absolutely hearable here. You gotta stop.
Okay. I'm sorry, sweetie. Go ahead, baby. I'm sorry.
Me and many of the students leave our classes and we're back to home. Students might not be able to have these safe spaces and supports. We should be able to keep our school open.
Thank you. Thank you. Remind people at home to mute yourself. Remember, as Stephen Sondheim said, the children will listen. As Roger and Hammerstein said, you have to be careful and talk.
The irony of a black girl presenting about why her school needs to remain open, and somehow a white woman becomes the center of attention because she doesn't realize that she's on a hot mic saying a bunch of racist stuff, right? The irony of a black girl sharing her wisdom and insight and still being relegated to a racist talking point, right? Absolutely wild. The part that even gets me more, because this story I saw get really popular. Now, she's a college professor, right? And they're on this Zoom and having these conversations, and she has a hot mic, and this is what slips out. And it goes back to what we've been saying, where a lot of folks who are in some of these positions, no matter how much education they have, no matter how cultured they claim to be, and how many different folks that they have been around, you find out how people really feel all the time, right? Hot mics expose all. And those are always the best because there's nothing you can take back, because the other question I have is, who was she talking to, right? Because the other person clearly was agreeing, because if they're that comfortable where that's the conversation that they just normally have, right? Interesting. But let me talk about how folks are always on code, right? Because then, with all that being said, with the backlash that takes place, you have an entire freedom of speech group who has taken her side, claiming that her civil rights are being violated or her First Amendment right. So let's read that article. All right. CUNY professor who made blatantly racist remarks on Zoom hot mic defended by free speech group as parents demand her firing. A free speech group has demanded the City of University of New York drop its probe into Professor caught up blatantly in a racist hot mic ordeal as furious parents insist she should be fired. Allison Friedman, an associate biology professor at Hunter College, has faced intense backlash after she was busted uttering the controversial comments as a Black student was voicing her concern about the potential shutdown of her school during a February 10th Community Education Council meeting. And this is her picture, by the way, because if you notice in that video, they had her picture blurred so you couldn't see her. But this is Allison, right? Let me make sure y'all can see her. This is Allison, just in case y'all couldn't see it in the video. All right. Hey, Allison, what's up? All right. If you train a black person well enough, they'll know to use the back. You don't have to tell them anymore. She continued before someone else on the call told her everyone could hear her and urged her to stop speaking. The Foundation of Individual Rights and Expression publicly defended Friedman on Tuesday, soon after the CUNY revealed it was reviewing the professor's remarks. Fire is alarmed at Hunter College's investigation of Professor Allison Friedman for her comments at the NYC School District meeting. The Free Speech Group's lawyers, Zach Greenberg, said, discussions of systemic racism fall squarely within the First Amendment rights this public college is legally required to uphold. Faculty have the right to discuss political issues off hours, especially those related to their children's schooling and local communities. Freeman, who has a PhD from NYU, researches and teaches cellular neural physiology, which explores the neural adaptations that are responsible for apparent social behaviors, according to her bio. Enraged parents, activists, and officials called during a Tuesday meeting for Freeman to be ousted from her gig, arguing the controversial comments proved that she had no business teaching anyone. It's unacceptable. Wendy Liz Martinez, a member of the Community Education Council 3, raged. She has no business being an educator, shaping the minds of the people in this kind of setting. Remember how I said people will play and twist our words? Now all of a sudden, because again, if you hear that conversation, once you heard the piece where it was that they're too dumb or too stupid to realize they're in a bad school, this is not a conversation about systemic racism, but they will use that term and flip it around in the same way where, again, you see a lot of people using a lot of the terms that we utilize in a lot of the landmark court cases that got us some of our civil rights, and how they've taken those same terms and used them against us. And now you have phrases like reverse racism and everything like that, or anti-white discrimination. Or I think on our last live, I played the clip of the woman who had the EEO video talking about if you're a white man who's been discriminated against because of the color of their skin. Like, you see how they will play these little silly games? So again, this white woman mocks this black girl who's in a school that maybe, I don't know the context of what's going on with the school, but saying that they're too dumb to realize they're in a bad school. Understand that that speech is not specifically about that little girl, but it's about that little girl and everything that she comes from and everybody who goes there. That little girl represents that entire collective and that entire community. To Allison, all of them are dumb. They're all stupid. They don't even realize they got a dumb school, right? And now you want to quote some, if you train them, they'll know to go to the back of the bus. I want to know who you're also talking to in the room, because I bet you it's a colleague, right? If it ain't a colleague, I bet you it's a husband, right? So it's kind of like, again, they will always be on code. And so the thing is, if we're going to have this conversation about free speech and everything, the question also becomes intent. And so a lot of times we've heard the narratives about free speech. Think back to when all of a sudden there was the war on political correctness. It wasn't about, trying to balance out the narratives and the discourse that people have, but it's more so people wanted to be comfortable saying all the racist and sexist or homophobic or all the different phobic things that they wanted to say without any pushback. That was the reality. You had Orange Man and all these different folks talking about, PC, politically correct, and then it transferred into woke, right? Where now, anytime you challenge the status quo or you try to challenge folks to just think a little bit harder, all of a sudden it's seen as woke or whatever else. They got all these terms. So a lot of times they'll use these same terms, flip the script, and use them as a way to justify protecting whatever offensive thing it is that they want to do. That, if they can get the backing of whiteness and the backing of whatever system to let them be in a space to do the terrible things that they want to do. That's the reality. And so again, these are the people that are running the show. This is a professor. This is somebody who gets to hold in her hand the trajectory of her students. She gets to fail or pass somebody. There's no telling what happens in those classrooms. And again, she's not the only one. Makes me think back to the book I recommended one time, They Were Her Property. Again, please revisit that book. And also, by the way, if you're doing the book club for next week, like I said, we're reading chapter 2 of Clay Cain's Burned Down Master's House. And so the character, I forgot the lady's name, but the white woman who was the wife of the overseer, they boy, that chapter there, paints the perfect picture of everything we're talking about right here. All right, let me pause and read some comments. And that poor little girl had to keep reading. She probably heard all of that, right? Again, burdened by the element of poise. They will play in our faces all the time. Didn't Steve Harvey make a goof too? I remember he met in Trump Tower and then said he was disappointed with the black community because they were mad at him for meeting with Trump. I do remember that. And I remember that random speech he had where he was talking about why are we sleeping past 8 a.m. if we're on the West Coast because the East Coast is already up and you need to be up. Pretty much saying whatever's happening to us is happening because we're getting too much sleep. I was like, that makes no sense. Whatever. I did a whole video on that too. Somebody said the laughing and giggling, and I think that was with the video. Somebody said, Taurus's love luxury. Why would they blur her out and not anyone else? Like she didn't need to be blurred out. She said it. It's a public forum. You stand by your words. That's the one thing I always say because people keep saying like, "How would you ever run for politics?" And I'm like, no, I can't even go into politics because even if I wanted to at this point, by the time they find this channel, I ain't backtracking from nothing I said. I'd have to just stand in it and own it with whatever I've said against whatever who. So like, yeah, stand in it. If you're gonna be a terrible person, own it, right? Somebody said they don't care about free speech when it's something they don't agree with. And then they're gonna try to blur her picture out. I said, y'all tried it. And then said it with the mic on. Like that's one thing. When I'm at work, I make sure that mic is on mute because my mic is on mute, right? Mic is on mute. When the meeting is over, I make sure that camera is off. And like if I'm about to take my lunch break or something, the whole laptop is turned the other way. I don't even want the camera looking at me. Even like when we finish these lives, before I do anything, I make sure this live is off for real, right? I mean, I'm in here by myself. There's nobody to talk to, but I'll be making sure because right after we do the live is when I sit and I go through all the timestamps immediately after so that the timestamps will be, uploaded ASAP. So I make sure cameras off, that nobody's going to be watching me. Like, I'm serious about that kind of stuff. So for you to be a professor and to be that confident and to think you're having that kind of conversation and you didn't think, oh, let me make sure nobody can hear this, because that ain't even kitchen table talk. That is clan. That's some clan talk there, right? Goodness. Okay. Speaking of data centers, what I did want to share, because we've talked about them a few times. So I want you guys to take note that there is businessinsider.com has a cool tool where you can actually go and take note of if they are building a data center or if there is a data center in your area, right? And so if you look at it, because there's tons of them, I think we have it's thousands of them that exist now. Where's my map? Oh no, please don't leave me this thing now because it was working earlier. Hold on, I gotta please be on here. Dang it. This better work. Thank you. Okay. God, I am not okay. We gotta hold on. Let me stop this real quick. Shit, I will do a 14-day free trial real quick just to prove the point. See, I always gotta charge you for some nonsense. This was working earlier. Actually, let me open this in another browser. Maybe I can get away with it. Give me 1 sec, because we gonna do this here. I'm not paying $14 and you got me effed up. Okay, yes, I am gonna pay. All right. So stupid. Everything got a subscription or all right, free trial. Oh, it's pissing me off so bad. I do it because I love my channel. I do it because I love my channel. I do it because I love my channel. 1 second, folks. Well, hell. Continue. I gotta put in my credit card information. Let me make sure make sure my thing is not on here for that. Got on here my whole account. We don't got wiped out on here. And United States. Okay. Let me make sure y'all can't see that. Lovely. God dang. All right, I agree. Yes, I agree to the terms and conditions. Dang, I ain't doing nothing I need anyway. Okay, kids. So we have somebody send me an Instagram message in 5 days to remind me to cancel this free trial because I will forget. All right, we're almost there. Give me 1 sec. I'm like, no, I don't. Now they want to give you a survey. Hey, what are you interested in reading? The article. Like, okay. Is it working now? All right, almost there. Give me 1 second, guys. I got it. Well, I guess we can do this because I know all y'all are not about to pay for a free trial, but I guess we can put in some requests here. Perfect. All right, let me share the screen. So initially, I will say when I was doing my notes 4 or 5 hours ago, this map was working perfectly fine. So this specific link, it looks like you get 1 shot to use it, and then after that, you got to pay. Okay. So going back to this, this has a list of all of the data centers in the area. So like I live in like DC. So if I put in my stuff, right, believe it or not, DC has, okay, nothing there. Let's do a different DC area code. I know. Okay. So there is a location. It's a Verizon data center, and it tells you the estimated power usage that they have, right? And then it tells you different brands. If we go into like Maryland, let's see what we got. So there's none there. What's another Maryland? What's another? What's my zip code for where I used to work at? Oh my God, I don't remember. Oh wow. Oh God, I don't remember. Hold on. What was that address? Jesus. Oh, okay. It's been a minute. Okay, nothing by where my kids are. But anyway, so if you go to this map and you zoom in, it will tell you every area where they have data centers. And we're gonna go to this area here. And then when you click the actual location, right, and scroll down, why is it not showing it? This thing's tripping now. It was working earlier, whatever. Maybe they knew I was doing a live tonight and said we're gonna change some stuff around here. But if you take out the zip code, you can just do it this way as well. Like if you go and scroll down and just go by your state, right? It'll tell you every area where they have some kind of data center, right? And a lot of times will also tell you the company. So look, Microsoft, Stack Infrastructure, Google, Allied Data Center, Align Data Center, Apple, Cypress One, Meta, Center Square, Cox Communications. All these places are data centers, and it will tell you how much energy they're using. Let's go to the ones who have the highest usage. Let's see where these ones are at. And this is why some of your bills and stuff are skyrocketing. So if you live in Sarpy, Nebraska, because there's a Meta data center there, your electricity bill is probably really, really high. Maricopa, Arizona, I think that's the county, right? Probably really, really high. Where's the Loudoun County, Virginia. I know where that's at. Yeah, pretty high. Where else we got here? Prince William County, Virginia. Wait, let's go to, let me see. I know there was some other stuff in DC. There was like 3 of them when I looked earlier. That's Colorado. Let's go down. DC. Cognate, CoreSite, Verizon. There's that. Maryland, what y'all got? Let me go to the neighbors. Where's MD? That's Massachusetts. All right, there's some data centers in, there's a Microsoft one in Anne Arundel County, Howard County. Amazon has 2 in Howard County, 1 in Anne Arundel County, 1 in Montgomery County, Frederick County, Maryland, Howard County, Baltimore County, Baltimore City, like all these different places. So again, I say all this to say, we know that there's a bunch of conversations about these data centers. And so most of the time, most of those are already open and in operation. But thing that I was going to say, pay attention to when they're having these town halls and these city council meetings, because a lot of these data centers have been getting shut down as far as the access to creating them. We saw what just happened in New Hampshire where the people were like, nope, not doing it. It got shut down. The reason why there's emphasis on these data centers is because they are using so much of the water in order to keep these turbines and stuff cooled down. And the problem is we are burning through so much water. So that's issue number 1. But the other issue is the pollutants that are coming into the air, right? We talked about what was happening in the state of Tennessee. Let's see if I can find another story on it. I don't know if I have time to go through the whole thing. We did it a few lives ago. Memphis. I'll just share the link and kind of give you guys the thing to go and follow. This was a Politico article, right? And so if we look here, I'm not reading the article, but I'll put the link in the description. How come I can't breathe? Must data company draws backlash in Memphis, right? In this article, this is one we covered a few months back, but it talks about what's been happening with deregulation and then building all these data centers in Black neighborhoods. specifically, right? If it's not Black neighborhoods, a lot of times it's working class neighborhoods, or it's rural neighborhoods, or it's neighborhoods where they assume that people are not going to be able to fight. And this article goes into detail about even the toxins that were in the ground and in the groundwater, and how all of this stuff was right next to an elementary school, right? And how there are going to be issues that affect people 10, 15, and 20 years down the line, right? So I will make sure that I have that article in the description on the on this video when it re-uploads, right? There's that. Okay. Now I want to go to what I call an interesting. Actually, let me read a few comments, and then I'll go to this MJ lawsuit really quick. I'm gonna just read a few quick comments. Somebody said YouTube ain't tell me nothing about this live. To be fair, I announced it today. I will say for those who are not getting the notifications, make sure that you hit the little bell thing button that's on there when you subscribe. Otherwise, you're not going to get notifications. And because I have not been as frequent on YouTube in the last few months, I am sliding down in the algorithm. So you're going to see me less and less if you're not actively looking for me, or unless I start actually being a little bit more active on YouTube. So that's what that is. Oh, y'all are still asking for locations. Okay, we can look at California. Let me go back to the map real quick. All right, put your request in. So let me go back real quick. All right, I saw Sacramento and I saw Fairfield, California. So let's take a look real quick. If we're going by state, now California is huge, so we're gonna go way. Oh Lord, okay. All right, so I think it's by county. Well, Sacramento's on there. Santa Clara, Alameda, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Santa Clara, Alameda. Let me do it by. No, I can't do it by county. It's gonna mix up. Napa. It seems to be a lot in the Bay Area. San Bernardino, that's south. That's by LA. Orange County, that's by LA. Monterey, Los Angeles County, Contra Costa, San Jose, Orange County, Alameda, that's the Bay again. Sacramento, that's the Bay. San Diego, that's way at the bottom. Riverside, Alameda, LA. Y'all got a lot. Well, California is huge. San Luis Obispo, I think I said that right. Placer. In California, y'all got a lot. So take note of what's going on here, and take note of these companies that have what they have. And it's the issue is not the data centers, but it's the output of the pollution, and it's the overusage of water that is the issue. They need to find ways to do all this stuff without affecting the environment from a negative standpoint. But again, with the deregulations we've had and the gutting of the EPA since the first Trump administration, a lot of these regulations and the gutting of them have made it possible for all of this to take place. Did we have any other? I'll do one more. Let me see if I have anybody else. Newark, New Jersey. Let's go to Jersey. All right, let's see here. Jersey. Oh yeah, all right. Oh crap. Oh, they even got the thing here. Okay. Somerset, Middlesex. I don't know if I'm saying this right. Passaic, Hudson, Middlesex again, Bergen, Middlesex. That sounds like a good time. Let me quit. Essex, Hudson, Burlington, Atlantic. Valencia's New Mexico. So yeah, you got all those there. So and it's you got them. They're all over, and they're like in almost every state at that point. So yeah, take note. Okay. So now going to this case, I want to read this case with this Michael Jackson thing, and then we're gonna wrap with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and then I'll just open the floor for y'all to chop it up and ask all different questions and stuff. Right. All right. So let me pull up this article here. Let's close that. That can close. All right. The reason I'm bringing this up is because there has been an influx of all these random lawsuits that are still going after like the Michael Jackson estate, and they're all cash grabs. All right. And this one has an interesting backstory, which is why I'm bringing this one up. Michael Jackson estate sued by Casio siblings alleging child sex trafficking and long-term abuse. Now, this is as of literally yesterday or today. I'm sorry. The estate of Michael Jackson is facing a new federal lawsuit filed by 4 adult siblings who allege they were sexually abused by the late singer over a period spanning more than a decade when they were minors. The complaint filed Friday in the U.S. District Court of LA was brought by Frank Dominic, Marie Nicole, and Aldo Casio. The 23-page filing alleges child sex trafficking, negligence, intentional infliction of emotional distress, negligent hiring, fraud, and breach of contract, among other claims. The plaintiffs are seeking compensatory. Oh my God, I cannot talk to save my life. And punitive damages. In a lawsuit, the siblings described Jackson as a serial child predator who allegedly groomed and abused them beginning when they were as young as 7 or 8 years old. The complaint claims the abuse occurred across multiple states and countries, including Neverland Ranch in Santa Barbara County during the domestic and international travel connected to Jackson's tours, personal visits. According to the filing, the siblings met Jackson through their father, who worked at a luxury hotel the singer frequently visited. The complaint alleges that Jackson cultivated a close relationship with the family, providing gifts and financial support while gradually isolating the children from the other adults. The lawsuit further claims that the siblings were given alcohol and drugs, exposed pornography, and assaulted individually over extended periods. The allegations detail specific locations where the abuse allegedly occurred. The complaint states that Frank was assaulted during the travel connected to the Dangerous World Tour at the residencies in Switzerland and the United Kingdom, as well as the Neverland Ranch. Dominic alleges abuse in Florida, New Jersey, New York, France, and South Africa, including during the History World Tour. Aldo and Marie Nicole make similar claims involving domestic and international travel, including stops in Vegas, Florida, and Bahrain. The Casio family had previously described themselves publicly as close to Jackson and were among his supporters during his 2005 criminal trial, which ended in acquittal on charges of child sexual abuse. Jackson maintained his innocence throughout his life and has denied any wrongdoing in past allegations. He reached a civil settlement in 1994 in a separate case while continuing to deny the claims. A new federal lawsuit follows a related legal effort by the siblings to void a prior financial settlement with the estate, which they have described as an unlawful agreement intended to silence victims of childhood sexual abuse. A judge has not yet ruled on that matter. It's a payout of like $618,000, I think. Attorneys for Jackson estate strongly dispute allegations. In a statement, Martin Singer described the lawsuit as a money grab and characterized as a tactic designed to obtain large financial sums from the estate. Singer stated that the Castle family publicly defended Jackson for decades and alleged that the claims are connected to what he describes as a prior $213 million extortion demand. The estate has sought to compel arbitration in related proceedings. Howard King, representing the siblings, said in a statement that his clients decided to move forward despite what he described as threats and accusations from the estate. He said they are seeking compensation and hope their claims will encourage others to speak out. Jackson died in 2009. All right. So, can we do some backstory real quick? Now, speaking of this family, and this is, again, I'm never going to be one to deny or silence victims, but this is a story where I'm like, wait a minute, hold up, pause for the cause, because something in here ain't adding up right. So we got to go and do some backstory, right? We're going to go on a little journey here because playing somebody else's face. So I want to backtrack. First of all, this is a man named Jason Malachi. In 2007, Jason Malachi had a song leak entitled Mamacita. By the way, he lives out here in the DMV. I think he lives in Montgomery County. He's on the police force. So anyway, this song Mamacita comes out. And there are some radio programmers who think it's Michael Jackson, right? Now, I heard the song. It don't sound like Michael Jackson to me, but whatever. The song gets out and radio starts playing it because this is 2007. This is when there's kind of rumors of Michael in the studio doing things. And so there's a few radio programmers that played the song. And then it's revealed that, no, this is not Michael Jackson. This is some other guy. What up, Nelton Bernard? Check out his channel, too, by the way. And so they're like, no, it's not a Michael Jackson song. You know, he still tries to push the song, but radio loses interest because it's not Michael Jackson, right? So there's that. Anyway, Michael Jackson had befriended the Casio family, the family that's currently suing him, right? Befriended the family, and, you know, they had been in some good relationships for years and 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 years. Then Michael Jackson dies. Out of nowhere, the Casio family makes this announcement, specifically Eddie Casio and James Porter or whatever within the Casio family. They claimed that they had recorded a full album with Michael Jackson that included 12 songs, and that Michael Jackson had been working on this album with them, you know, after after he, you know, left Neverland after the trial in 2005, and from like 2007 onwards, he had been working with the Casio family on all these tracks and all these albums, right? Now, we also know that for those who pay attention to Michael like that, Michael had been working with Akon and Will.i.am, but with a lot of the studio sessions Michael had, there weren't a lot of songs that were completed. As a creative, Michael was somebody who, you know, you get an idea, maybe you burp in the mic and put half of a verse, and that's all you recorded, which is why, oddly enough, even after Michael Jackson has died, there hasn't been a lot of music released after his death because he doesn't have a lot of completed songs, right? But somehow, Casio family makes this claim that, you know, they recorded this magical 12 set of songs, right? The same family that's suing, and they send these 12 songs to Sony, who at this point, Michael Jackson has died, right? It's time to cash in. You know, money is to be made from This Is It. They couldn't do the tour and everything. So AEG is going to make money from the This Is It movie. That makes tons and tons of money hundreds of millions of dollars. And Sony's like, it's time to release, you know, an album after he dies. And so they start working on what you call the Michael album. All right. So they're looking for tracks and everything. And so 3 of those 12 songs that the Casios claim they did end up making the album. But before the album is released, there is a song that leaks called Breaking News. Right. Now, the thing about Breaking News is that the song leaks and automatically Michael Jackson fans are like, this doesn't sound right. Something is real off about this. And we don't think this is Michael Jackson at all. And then the things about the song just didn't quite add up. Like if you listen to the lyrics on that song, there's this weird, interesting bit where like, I forgot the line, but the line says something like, oh, everybody's talking about Michael Jackson. Like that's literally the line. Michael Jackson never said his name in any of his songs, right? So people are starting to say like, something is off about these songs, right? Anyway, the songs make the album. There's 3 songs that make the album. One song is called Breaking News. One song is called Keep Your Head Up. One song is also called Monster. And so when the Breaking News album, when the Michael album comes out, let me show you if you remember this album cover. I didn't have this picture ready because I wasn't planning to go this in depth on this story, but it's okay. All right. So it was this album here. All right. So anyway, this you guys might remember this album, right? This album comes out, I want to say 2010. They were quick. Like Michael was dead and they already had the album ready, right? And so, you know, they start doing all the promotion for this album. And, you know, the Casio family, like I said, they have been a family friend to Michael forever and a day, right? They appeared on the Oprah show to help promote this album and talk about how great Michael was and how it was great recording these songs with him. And he was a family friend and he did all these different things. And so they did all these different spaces. I mean, even they had Teddy Riley coming in that come and mix some of the music. Now on this album, the song that he had done with Akon, Hold My Hand, was the lead single, if you remember that song, right? But again, remember, this is 2010. Michael has just died. Everybody knew he was worth more dead than alive. And so they appear on the Oprah show. Oprah specifically asked them, was there anything inappropriate that took place? Was there any? Oh, no, not at all. Absolutely not. No, we could never. We never have done anything like that, right? That's the main narrative that was out there. They specifically were like, nope, never happened. Michael's always been a great person, right? And so, again, for decades, the siblings, Frank, Eddie, Marie, and Nicole publicly maintained that Jackson was innocent of any inappropriate conduct. And then again, when they did the Oprah show, they said Michael was never inappropriate with them. Then, in addition to that, Frank Casio came out with a book, right? A 2011 memoir, My Friend Michael, An Ordinary Friendship with an Extraordinary Man, right? In which he defended Jackson's love for children as innocent and misunderstood, right? And then in addition to that, the 2005 trial, Frank Casio told Court TV he wouldn't be there if Michael Jackson was a pedophile, all these different things, right? Anyway, this album comes out. The fans are not having it. They know that something is off. And so those hardcore Michael fans were not budging, and they were like, we are going to get to the bottom of this because somebody in here lying, right? Somebody is lying. And it gets to the point where it ends up in the court system. And then we fast forward, this makes it up into the court system well into 2018. And then by the time we got to 2022, they actually had to pull those 3 songs off the album because it was discovered that those songs were not Michael Jackson. Now, it is alleged that those songs were the Jason Malachi guy. He really is not quite ever acknowledged or admitted to it, so I don't want to put it out here and be lying. But that was kind of one of the things that were there where people were like, they think it's Jason Malachi, and they've always thought that for the longest. And so anyway, this family had another suit that was going on where they thought they were going to get a huge payout. Nothing came. They got $600,000, right? Clearly, they're not happy with what they got. And so now we fast forward, and now here's this $231 million lawsuit and this new claim about Michael doing whatever. Now, I'm going to say this again. I will never take away the narrative from a victim, but this one here is real sketchy to me. You already lied about recording a full album with this man. You had some impersonator, which most people still think is Jason Malachi, who recorded a full 12 songs. And mind you, some of these songs were recorded even before it was alleged that Michael would have been in the studio with them. By the way, I will shout out the Faking Michael podcast, which goes into detail about this entire ordeal. And it's very extensively detailed. I can't even explain this as good as they did. It's called Faking Michael Podcast. It's on Spotify, might be on YouTube. It's on a bunch of different spots, but it really just highlights how this family is one of these families that came just like the Chandler family to come and exploit and get everything they could out of Michael, right? Financially. They lashed onto this man, thought they were going to get a payout, didn't really get anything. And so all of a sudden, you're seeing the same pattern that you saw with what happened with the folks who came out with Leaving Neverland, where you know, the same folks who defended this man time and time again, statement after statement, and even did his tribute at the VMAs, and then out of nowhere, boom, here's all these different things that took place. And then they released this documentary. You know, the Michael fans are not playing any games. And then almost everything in the documentary gets refuted by evidence because none of the stuff matched up. The train station wasn't even constructed at the time that the claims were made. And so when it comes to Michael, it's just very interesting that so many people are still trying to cash in, right? And this is never to take away from people, like I said, who are victims of sexual assault or molestation or anything. But when you see a pattern of people who have done greedy things and then they get down to their last resort and they make this claim, they do this because they recognize this is a sensitive topic. This is a topic that people cave to where it's like, hold up, I'm not down with that, right? Nobody wants to be associated with somebody who's a pedophile or molest children. And so a lot of times people can get that extra leg of leverage. And unfortunately for this family, they need to cash in because they're also out of money. That's really the reality. So we will see what's happening with that. I do see this case probably getting thrown out, to be honest. Absolutely wild. That one threw me off. I said, I know that ain't the family I think it is. Because when I saw this news story, I'm like, okay, Lord, let this man rest already. But yeah, when I saw Casio, I'm like, wait, that's the family I just finished reading about. I was like, wait a minute, nope, absolutely not. And you know what's wild? And if you listen to some of those other songs that didn't make the project, they were so lazy with the scameration. One of the songs, literally, they stole the ad lib that Michael makes on R&RHOF song. Like, it's the actual ad lib isolated, and they paste it into another song. Like, yeah, that's Michael on there. Yeah, that's him singing. I said, wow. Now, does that excuse Michael from hanging with kids all the time? I'd be like, Michael, the optics don't look great, right? But in the reality of what's also not going to happen is people just coming up here making up stuff for a cash grab. And the fact this man has been dead since 2009, right? And then here y'all come with some more foolery because it's time to cash in. And this is slowly, to me, it seems like it's happening because this movie is coming out. And everybody knows when this movie comes out, there's going to be a bunch of buzz. There's going to be millions of dollars made. Michael's streams are going to skyrocket. So the estate is going to get more and more money. By the way, Michael Jackson's family did not support that album as far as what was happening because they recognized something is out of whack. When those songs were played to Jermaine, Randy, and some of the other Jacksons, they're like, this is not Michael. And then Sony was so greedy, they still were like, we're going to put it out. We trust the Casios. We trust this random family that sent us a blank disc that said Michael Jackson album on it, and we're going to use these songs. Like, everybody greedy. The estate ain't ish. All of them are terrible. Anyway, last thing I'll close on, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Let me pull up this list again. It's an interesting list this year. Well, who are all the people we got? So 2026 nominees for this year. Come on, it pulls up already. All right, the Black Crow. Let me talk about. I'll name everybody, but y'all already know who I actually care about on this list. But the Black Crowes, Jeff Buckley, Mariah Carey, Phil Collins, Melissa Etheridge, Lauryn Hill, Billy Idol, INXS, Iron Maiden, Joy Division, New Order, New Edition, Oasis, Pink, Sade, Shakira, Luther Vandross, and Wu-Tang Clan. Right? I think people can actually vote for their favorite nominees now. Some of these people have been nominated before. I think Mariah Carey's been nominated twice before. Very interesting list. I think this is actually a pretty good list. I know a lot of folks keep getting mad because they're saying it's getting less and less centered on rock, and then you're starting to see all these other artists get kind of put in there. And my thing and my response to that has always been rock and roll. One, there's a genre, but there's also rock and roll, just the brand, right? And when we're talking like the brand of what is deemed rock and roll, that's everything that is entertainment, and it has always been. And I just noticed that a lot of times when they make these arguments about what's not rock and roll, it's normally when a Black person is, considered. They did this when Janet got the nomination a few times. They were whacking Janet, and I'm like, Janet has a #1 rock hit that she wrote, Black Cat, #1 on the Hot 100 and the rock charts, right? And then she got other rock songs, right? But they were trying to claim she ain't rock and roll enough, and she's too pop this. They did that with Whitney Houston when she got in. They felt some kind of way when LL Cool J got in. Like, it's the same thing. They'll probably do that with Wu-Tang. So I feel like they probably won't give any smoke to Sade. They'll let Sade slide. Luther Vandross might get some smoke, I feel like, from them. They might say something smart about New Edition, who I think definitely should be inducted. Interesting. We'll see kind of what happens with that. All right, I'm going to read this chat, and we'll call it a night. There's some other things I did want to talk about, but it's already about to be midnight. I got to go to work tomorrow. And so... also, rest in peace to Jesse Jackson. What else did I want to add on here? I'll leave it at that. We'll end on a high note. I don't feel like cussing nobody out for the rest of the night. Done enough arguing. Let's see here. Kukui79 said, what the F? So Hawaii has to be awake by 2 a.m. then? That's in response to the Steve Harvey thing where he was mad at people in California for sleeping past 8 o'clock. You tell me, Hawaii, who's getting up at 2 a.m.? All right. Somebody said, don't forget to cancel before your trial ends. I'm about to, look, as soon as I finish putting these timestamps, I'm gonna cancel that thing because I know I'm gonna forget. And I'll see $14 get yanked out of my account. Like, wait a minute, what's that from? But yeah, somebody make sure you in a few days, somebody send me an IG message or a Threads message or Blue Sky or something. Just Calvin, don't forget to cancel that thing because I will forget. Right. Somebody said, didn't Castro release all the fake tracks? Yeah, they're all on YouTube, all of them, right? Every last one of them. Somebody said, so a decade and a half before 4 people decide to sue. Like, And I agree with this piece. Scorpiana said, we can't expect victims to tell the truth on our timeline. They have to be ready. And then 14-year-old victim of R. Kelly, I should have brought that up too, recently came out and said she lied on the stand. Now that case, that was the one where I kept saying, like, because she was not trying to be a part of anything and cooperate, they kind of, even though it's the tape, and I get it, because it's you're on a tape that the entire world has seen for those who ended up watching it. So yeah, that is understood. With this family, their timeline just don't add up to me. They have too many holes that can be poked that just throw me off with that. And that's not just because I'm a fan of Michael Jackson, because I wasn't a fan of everything he did. But that one there, we'll see where it goes, right? It's just you keep seeing a pattern of people recognizing that's a card that can be pulled, especially with Michael Jackson, because of his questionable antics and choices in his life as far as who he chose to associate with or hang with. So it already makes him an easy target to begin with. And so, yeah, I just... Somebody said, Mariah better be a shoo-in. Pink, why? Well, with Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, once you've been in the business for 25 years, you're eligible. I like Pink. She's all right with me. I think Pink is all right. I'll rock with her. Somebody said, and what about Trust to Try? And what about Trust to Try with rock songs? Janet got a few rock songs. She got Come Give Your Love to Me. She had a song literally called Rock and Roll. What else? There was Black Cat. There was This Time. What I'll Do is more like country to me. There was What I'll Do. There was technically You. That was kind of rockish. You had Trust to Try. Someone to Call My Lover is not really a rock song, but it does kind of have that soft rock, easy listening sound to it. You had that song. Sexhibition is kind of a rock song. This Body's kind of rockish. Take Me Away is pretty much a rock song. We Gonna Be All Right is more of a funk, but has that rock. She got a bunch of rock related tracks. Let's see. What I think will happen with the music industry. I want to be an artist as is my passion. I'm not making it a main income source though. Oh, we live in the same life. I make music because I enjoy it. Go and do it. Because I'm learning that like time is going to pass either way. So just do all the things you want to do. Sometimes I wish I would have started music a little bit younger. But hey, I couldn't afford to build my own studio. And so, just a little while. I forgot that. What's his name's not on here, but he would whack me for forgetting that song. But yeah, I would say do it now. The industry, I don't know what's going on with the music industry. I do think there's going to be some kind of reset because the music industry right now can't sustain itself. Music industry has turned into a touring industry as far as revenue, but touring is too expensive for the consumer. And so I think we're about to see a shift with that because concerts have only gotten higher and higher and higher. The Live Nation monopoly lawsuit, I believe, starts tomorrow. So we'll see what happens with that. Artists still aren't making enough from streaming. Excuse me. So we'll kind of see. I have no idea where the industry is going, but I do think there's going to have to be some kind of reset. This is also a very do-it-yourself era. or you have lots of do-it-yourself artists, myself included, who do things themselves. And now you also have AI, which has jumped into the conversation, where we literally have software where you don't even have to know how to sing or anything. You just can type in subject matter, make it sound like this, and boom, a song is created. So there's all kind of things happening at the moment in music. No idea where it's going. I do think AI with music, I'm not a fan of it at all. And I do think what will eventually happen is the creativity will start to dwindle, because AI only responds on what's being fed to it. So if every artist starts using AI or whatever to make their music, there are no new ideas being created. It's just the same pool of ideas and energy circulating and circulating. And so AI would start regurgitating the same thing. And I think people would get bored and then want to go back to something that's more original. It's kind of like people who are now into the era of buying records or buying vinyls, right? Because we're now learning that hard media is kind of phasing out because everything is subscription based, which is so annoying. Everything is a subscription, right? And so now you see people going back and buying DVDs or buying CDs or buying something hard and tangible that they can hold on to, because people don't want to be married into 15,000 different subscriptions. So we'll kind of see where music goes. Am I excited for the new Scary Movie? Yes, because I love Regina Hall and I need me a good laugh. Somebody said R. Kelly's victim was on tape being urinated on. She never spoke publicly. Cassio defended Michael before and after his death all the time, just like the Leaving Neverland guys back comparison. I really still feel bad for that girl, because man, those had to be some tough shoes to be in, right? And like I said with the R. Kelly situation, there were so many enablers in that space that knew what was happening. But people wanted their check, people wanted their payout, people wanted their livelihood. And I think there's a lot of people, even in his circle, who claim that they didn't know stuff, who I think knew what was happening. That's in relation to the R. Kelly thing. But to that point, like they were saying, the Cassios have been one of his strongest defenders, but the Cassios got some money problems right now. So this is just very convenient. That's all I'll say with them. Somebody said, is Rhythm Nation considered rock? I wouldn't consider it rock. I consider it like a New Jack Swing funk song. Like the song it samples is Sly and the Family Stone, which is a funk song. It does have the bass guitar riff, but I wouldn't consider it a rock song. Let's see. Somebody said the creativity in clean water will dwindle down with the rise of AI music. And it sounds empty anyway. I'm hoping people get past that real quick. Who knows? Somebody said there are a lot of people who really just don't care. I don't know what that's about, but I agree. Whatever it is, people. Interesting. The Cassios also sold a bunch of stuff like Michael's underwear on eBay. See, that's who even has that? Who collects that? Right? What are you doing? All right. Anyway, other shows I've been paying attention to. Somebody got me into Traders, which perfectly says everything I've been saying about a certain collective that I believe does not have discernment. Because how the heck did y'all not know Rob was? Oh, I don't know if y'all watched that show, but that show had me stressed. It's this show where you have all these celebrities that are in a house, and there's a certain amount of people who are selected to be the traders, and everybody else is the faithful, but nobody knows who the traders are. They have to keep figuring out who the trader is, so they keep voting people off every episode, or the traders whack somebody and take them off the show. And like there was this guy who was it was just so obvious, and what was so interesting is all the black folks got voted off early on. Every single time the white folks would be like, something just doesn't feel right about so and so, or something just feels off about I don't know if I can trust Portia. I don't know if I can trust Candace. I don't know if I can. Who else was on there that was black? All these random black folks. They couldn't trust none of the black folks. Once they got all the black folks out of there, then they got the browns out, right? And it was all the white folks stuck to themselves. And this one Asian man who was holding on, they got him out of there too. You got to go. And so when they got down to the wire, and all of the evidence is right there, it's like just how. A mess. That was a very interesting show. I've only seen that season. I don't know if I watched the other ones, but that one stressing me out. All right. Somebody said 56 Days was pretty good. I don't know what that is, but I gotta check it out. I'll write it down. I need some stuff to watch on my flight because I got 12 hours of flying and I'm not looking forward to it. 56 days. All right. Somebody said, why in the name of common sense would somebody buy? People are obsessed with celebrity, and it's amazing the things that people will buy from celebrities, or just to have that proximity, or access to anything that a celebrity has had. It's just think about when there's a concert and the celebrity got the towel, right? Towel's all sweaty. They've been wiping and all this, and then they throw it in the crowd, and the crowd just all fights, and they try to get that sweaty, musty towel. Like, folks, interesting. Have I seen America's Next Top Model docuseries? I did watch it. That was an interesting watch. To me, I feel like the responsibility, because one, I was trying to remind myself that I'm watching this through a lens of 2026 and that I need to place myself in the moment of when the show came on, because I didn't really watch America's Next Top Model like that. I did watch some every now and then. Like I remember watching the season with Eva a little bit. You know, sometimes they'd have a marathon or something on. That's the one season I kind of remember watching, but I never really watched America's Next Top Model. I did watch her talk show in college, but America's Next Top Model I didn't watch like that. But to me, a lot of the faults that were put out there, I feel like a lot of it was a bigger picture with production. They kind of painted it all to be Tyra is the villain. And I'm like, Tyra has her faults, but she ain't the only person that's responsible for what's happening here. And I will say, how I've always looked at reality shows, even then, right? I always saw these reality shows as an opportunity to get the exposure, but it doesn't guarantee long-term success and that you'd have to, do the work. Now, the documentary talks about how a lot of them were in a space where if there was an association with them being on that show, there wasn't going to be a lot of work. But I just feel like with a lot of the shows that I watched, even watching like the Making the Bands and stuff, right? You knew with them signing the Bad Boy that it was going to be short-lived, right? There's always that, if you watch something like The Apprentice before Orange Man became Cuckoo, and I'm not talking Celebrity Apprentice, but the regular Apprentice, you knew that it was more like it was just a show. Yeah, you get a bigger platform, but it's no guarantee that things are going to align or come together. Lots of problems with that show that I saw from the doc. I mean, some of that stuff, I was like, what the hell were they doing over there? I felt like Janice Dickinson didn't get enough smoke for me. That was throwing me off. They let her slide. Because remember, she had her own reality show. And I remember there was the woman who was unhoused that she spotted that she thought was like, oh, you could be a model. And she's like, so she like helped her come off the street. And I think she might have got her a place. But the rule was the lady had to get a nose job and get her teeth done in order to get the opportunity. But then the woman didn't want to get the nose job. So Janice sent her back to the streets. If y'all want to whack Tyra, you better have Janice needs to be next on deck because she was vicious. And to me, a lot of the horrible things that were said are really what were already being said in the fashion world industry. That's how they've always treated everybody. So it's not a justification, but it's a reality. To me, I saw it as a show that mirrored the reality of what was happening in that industry. Now, I will say, sadly, I think the very thing that she was competing against or trying to not make a standard with the fashion industry, I feel like that show slowly became that. And a lot of that has to do with production and things that get the general public interested in watching, right? That's how I kind of see that. So they done made Tyra look like the straight devil. I'm like, okay, there's flaws with this show, but she ain't the only one. Y'all got to go after everybody. That's because even with the girl that was struggling to read, like that was effed up. I was like, I know this is a production thing because if you knew the girl already couldn't read, why would y'all stand there and make her read the thing? That's embarrassing, but whatever. Oh, Harold. Now that one, I was like, what the hell? I have never seen that episode. I had to go on YouTube that. The one where they all had to be a different race. I said, what are y'all over here doing? What is ooh. Yeah, they did a lot of stuff. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me, and this is unrelated, because I was like, yeah, Tyra had them doing all kind of crazy stuff. Because there were some moments where people had like different phobias or something, and next thing you know, that was their photo shoot. Makes me think of the Maury show. Remember Maury? If they weren't doing the You Are Not the Fathers, and they weren't doing the out of control teenagers, they did the photo or the people who had the disabilities that would get the trip to Hawaii and stuff or get to meet their favorite singer. It was always the person who had a phobia of random weird things, right? It'd be the lady who was afraid of aluminum foil, and she'd be up just shaking and crying like, I'm just afraid. And next thing you know, Mari's like, let's bring out some foil. And then it's a guy wrapped in foil walking towards the lady. And I'm like, she's already afraid of foil. Y'all couldn't just come out with some Reynolds wrap and be like this. No, they wrap somebody in the foil. Now they're walking like a zombie towards this woman who's freaking out. Now she's running backstage. Maury already has the backstage set up for cameras and everything. And so she runs backstage. And then there's like 2 more foil zombies in the hallway. I'm like, what is going on here? That needs to be the most horrible, horrible thing, right? And I would be watching just laughing too. I was like 12. I was like, this is the greatest thing ever. Like, man, because they would be afraid of foil, tissue. Some people had more reasonable ones. Like I remember there was these 2 black ladies. They were scared of cats. That kind of makes sense, right? And it was so bad because I remember they brought that kitten out. It was this black lady with she had a fade. And I remember she ran out. It was like 2 sisters or something. They gone. Okay, they were not playing. But by the end of the episode, I think the lady with the fade was like almost able to kind of touch because they brought like a kitten or something out. Like that's pretty logical, reasonable, right? That's people are afraid of cats, people are afraid of dogs, snakes, spiders, like normal things. But you had other people on there afraid of pickles, afraid of what else was on there? I think Q-tips, just all kind of crazy things. Now, I will say this. The only food I would have ever been afraid of might have been potatoes, but after they sprouted. Like, do you remember being a kid and that first time you ever saw a potato that had sprouted and it had all those little legs and everything? I was like, what? Like, I remember what is that? Like, it looked very 1980s thriller movie with the bad tracking where you got to push the button on the VCR to clear up the picture. Those little potato sprouts scared the heck out of me because I was like, what is that? Like, I got to get out of here. Got to go. That's the only thing that makes sense. But, yeah. What? Brooke Smith, did you see Amber Mark at the Fillmore last night? I didn't even know she was here. If you don't know, Amber Mark is one of my favorites of the new generation of entertainers. I think Amber Mark is this amazing entertainer who has this beautiful alto pocket. They have a lot of my favorite songs. Wow. Are you serious? Like, Put You On is my song. I love that song. Are you serious? I have no idea. Like, okay. I'm already mad. I'm not gonna be able to do the Boys and Men New Edition Tony Braxton show. They're here on the 13th, but I'll be out of town, so I can't go to that. And they already went to Baltimore. So I won't get to go to that show. But I've already seen all three of them, so I guess that counts. But I still kind of wanted to go. I am mad about that. No, I did not get to see them. Oh my gosh. All right, let me see what else y'all said here. That pissed me off so bad. I've seen some fun shows at the Fillmore. Somebody said, well, I used to pay $19 for a CD. If I was lucky to catch the Tuesday deals at Best Buy, yep, that Tuesday deal, $9.99 on Tuesday. I want artists to get paid, but I don't want to go broke doing it. I don't know what the solution is because I don't think we'll ever get into a space where you can convince the general public to go and purchase music the way that we purchased music before the era of streaming and even digital purchasing. Because now, people look at music like a utility almost. It's like if I consider, well, even though the platform is trash now, but before Elon got in there and messed it up, I consider something like Twitter and even YouTube both public utilities, right? I mean, people will pay for additional services, but and they're very valued and everything like that. But they're kind of like, people now see them as free services that will always be here, right? And I think that's what music has kind of turned into. Like, people used to go and purchase, and now because it's been something that people can get for free for the last 20 years, because even if you weren't getting it from streaming, people just go and illegally download it or bootleg it. It's going to be really hard to get people to convince themselves that they want to go back and pay for music, especially now that the industry has totally shifted. But you know what's crazy? I do believe that if the general public did get back into purchasing music, let's just say, and it doesn't even have to be the 1999. Let's just say albums sold for $5.99 from now on. I mean, they sell for, I think, $9.99 now, but let's just say they sold for $5.99. That alone would generate so much revenue in the music business, where I feel like in return, labels would be a bit more open to, again, artist development, a money budget for music video, all that kind of stuff. I feel like things would shift a little bit, because right now, if you notice, a lot of music entertainers, they have to do so many things outside of music just to pay their bills. They all got a podcast, right? So now I got to compete with all the singers and everybody else in Hollywood the money is low right now. So everybody got a podcast. I got to compete on the same platform with them, right? And that's not just me. That's every YouTube streamer, podcaster person. We all got to compete with the celebrities now who are now in our same spaces, right? They got to do that, or they got to do TikToks to do their marketing, or they got tons and tons and tons of brand deals. Right now, in order to pay bills, everybody has brand deals, or they're touring, right? So there's all these different things. So it's just an interesting time. Somebody said reality TV was unhinged at the time. That was my thing. I feel like anything you pull out from before 2012 is going to be terrible. No matter how, it's just the way things were, right? If you thought Tyra was bad, wait till you get to all them VH1 shows, right? The Flavor of Loves and Charm Schools and all that. And when you find out what happened behind the scenes on those shows, like all these shows are gonna terrible. Wait till you find out probably what was happening behind the scenes on Survivor and all of these different shows. Like it's just the era that we were in, unfortunately. Interesting. Hey Calvin, could you do a video comparing experiences of Black people in the past 1960s versus now, especially legal rights, economic status? Do Black people have it better or worse now? Great question. That can be an idea, but to answer the second part, I don't think there's a way to compare experiences in like a parallel checkbox. In the same way, sometimes when we talk music and I say instead of comparing artists in a parallel, look at their experience in a spectrum. I think the Black experience exists in a spectrum where there are some things that are better, but some things that are worse, no matter what generation. There are some things in the 1960s that may have been better collectively for Black folks then than what we're dealing with now when it comes to terms of being in community or where the Black dollar was spent. But at the same time, there's all these different laws and stuff that worked against Black people. And then I think in this era, there's advances into, there's so many different things to consider. Advances in technology, what's the rule of law on land, like there's a million things to consider. So I don't think there is a, this is better or that's better, this is worse. And it also depends on the experience of the person who lived it. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, and we talked about this on the last book club, where if you were a younger Gen Xer or even a millennial, when we had our Black History Month lessons and, they made us watch the civil rights movies, we'd be those main kids talking about, oh, that wouldn't happen to me, man. I would have been out there just fight. We're speaking through a lens of living in a space where we've always been technically free as far as not being enslaved, right? Speaking through a lens of, when was I in middle school? Speaking in a lens of living in 2001 and 2002. Speaking in a lens of, not knowing or having to experience redlining and all that stuff. And so the privileges of living in the current time kind of give you a blinder where you think you know more than the generation before because you're still too young and inexperienced to understand the world. I'm just speaking for myself, but like when I was 12, 13 years old, right? I had my perceptions thinking, oh, I would have been dealing with that. Oh, I would have been out there fighting, blah, blah, blah. Or even in conversations of slavery, oh, I would have been fighting and burning down the thing. Like nobody looks at the bigger picture. Okay, so you burn down the master's house. Now what do? Right? You were enslaved in the Gulf region of Mississippi right by the water. And you burn down the master's house and you're talking about you got to get north. Getting north from the Gulf, from Biloxi, Mississippi is different than getting north from Delaware. Right? Because Delaware was a slave state. And Delaware, literally, all they had to do was just get to Pennsylvania if they could after a certain time once Pennsylvania outlawed slavery. So escaping the freedom from Delaware to Pennsylvania is very different than escaping from Biloxi, Mississippi. Good luck, right? And so all those kind of things I always consider and think about. So I don't really have an answer to that second question. I think it exists in the spectrum. It kind of depends on the experience. I think some things are better. I think some things are worse and vice versa. And I think... every experience, there's not like a blanket experience. It varies because experience in the North in the 1960s, 1970s, people may think, oh, it was better because it's not, leftover Jim Crow South. But have you been to Boston? Like respectfully Boston, but have you been to Boston, right? Or if we always see the clips of, when Queens was going through white flight and you had those Black families moving into Laurelton, Queens, and you saw them Black kids getting chased on the bikes by the white kids. So lots of experiences, but that's a great question. I mean, maybe we can do a video that centers a bit more on that kind of thing. I know I did it in my New Jack Swing deep dive, but I was specifically talking about how hardship and experiences that are not so glamorous have always resulted in an abundance of creativity in music when it comes to Black folks. And we went decade by decade, starting with the 1920s, going into the 80s. Thank you, Bill Food 33. Calvin, good to see you. I truly respect your voice. I appreciate it. Let's see what else we got here. Somebody said, I think something is going on with Tyra. She seems so out of it during the doc. I know she also didn't produce that documentary, so there's no telling what didn't make the cut. She does seem a bit out of it too, because once she living in Australia, I was like, how'd you end up over there selling ice cream? But I guess. Oh, I forgot about that. She was a 77. The Maury episodes when they did the is it a man or a woman? Like that could never come on today. Like, boy, woo, the way that advertisers would pull out for something like that. But yeah, like when you look at the things that were normalized, like what? Yeah. Oh, I watched that Bryson Stanley. There's this other docuseries called Dirty Talk when Daytime Rule TV, which is a good watch. It's like three or four parts. I watched that. I watched it on Hulu. I think ABC did it. It was a good watch, right? You know, they talked about the talk shows and how they shifted from more of like a Phil Donahue, Oprah approach to more like a Ricky Lake, Jenny Jones, Jerry Springer, Maury show type of thing. Really interesting watch. Oh, Calvin, if you could get a PhD and money wasn't a barrier, what subject would it be in? So I know UCLA, I don't know if they still have it, but I know they were piloting a program for a doctorate in Black studies. Now, you know what Black studies, they normally have Africana studies, and then Black studies is a subcategory under it. But from what I understand, UCLA had an actual PhD in Black studies. I would have gone and done that because I've always said the last career I want to have after I do whatever else I do in this life, whether it's in music, film, or whatever I do, I want my last career to be teaching, right? I want to teach on the college level and teach at an HBCU. And I want to grow and be one of those old Black professors that is like, oh, everybody goes to you for wisdom kind of type thing. Like that's what I want my last career to be. Now I will say what's interesting, a lot of times you don't even have to have the doctorate to teach anymore, depending on what kind of life you've had and what your successes are. So we'll see. But that's one thing I've always wanted to do is go and study Black studies, because there's so much more I can learn. So yeah. Shout out to you, Scotland. Somebody said you need a Howard economist to help you with that type of video. I feel, yeah, especially if we're talking economics during that time period. Yeah, I agree. Somebody said one of my favorite things to do is read African American newspapers from the early 1900s. The times did not change. I urge you to read it. The best one is the Afro-American. I know the Afro-American. I forgot why we had to learn about the Afro-American. I learned about it. God, what course was that? It might have been my intro to Black politics class at Howard. And I only remember this because there was a segment in the course. God, this is like 20 years ago. Jesus. Well, maybe not that long. I ain't that old. I told you my musical age is 28, so I got to act like I'm still super young. I want to say in that course, we had a portion about Black media and its influence in Black politics, and also where the Black church, God, this is so long ago. I'm trying to remember the lecture, and where the Black church stood. And for some reason, somehow that's how we got into the conversation of the African American. You just took me back. I can't even remember that professor's name. I think it's Bernard something. Actually, I think we're Facebook friends. Let me see. Actually, I don't even put his government name out there like that. But yeah. Okay, that just took me back. Okay. Hey family, always good to tune in to the live randoms question. Did anyone see the recent commentary surrounding Tyra? Woo! I did watch that. The FD Signifier video. That was a long, detailed watch. Woo! I know this sounds weird, but after I watched it, I went to and ended up watching Straw because he said that was the movie that was actually not bad. Because at first I didn't want to watch it because everybody kept telling me nothing good would happen the entire movie. So I was like, oh, let me go check it out. Let me support Taraji. But that was I'll say this first of all. I appreciate that it was 4 hours because finally there's somebody else who has a deep dive that are longer than mine. So I don't want to hear nobody else talking about Calvin, your videos are too long, because I cannot stand this current era of surface level information we're in, where people's attention span is so short. The funniest thing that I keep laughing about in my last deep dive, and I know I owe one, but that New Jack Swing, what cracked me up is the first 2.5 minutes, maybe it was 4 minutes of the New Jack Swing doc. You know, I do that conversation about the K-pop bit. And even though I gave a disclaimer and said, stay with me, this is going to go somewhere. Do you know how many people were whacking me like, I can't believe you. How long did you talk about the K-pop? You need to talk about Teddy Riley. I'm like, this video is 1 hour and 40 minutes. Do you really think I'm not going to talk about Teddy Riley in a New Jack Swing deep dive? Just watch the video. Just watch this. Like, Lord, man, I mean, people. And then there was one part, because there was a part where I talked about just dynamically how the sound of New Jack Swing kept changing. I had this little collage where I played a bunch of songs that were kind of considered New Jack Swing, but then two of the songs, which I had Mary J. Blige, Real Love, and Jade, Don't Walk Away. Folks were like, oh, sorry, New Jack Swing. I was like, just stay with the video, because by the time you get to that segment, by the time we got to 92, we talk about how by the time you got to the production, are those songs even considered New Jack Swing based on their production style and based on what was happening with the trend of music? But people, them attention spans were so short. I was getting cussed out so bad. I was like, y'all about to not get another one of these. It's going to be a year. So yeah, I'm happy he got a 4-hour one. It took me 3 days to get through that. I'll be like cleaning. And then, you know, sometimes the details are good. So you, like when you're cleaning, you got to rewind because you done missed the visual and stuff. But very, very interesting watch. He and I were on, I think I always tell you guys, check out the Lifting Higher as We Climb Consulting channel. That's Dr. Kamani. And she did a panel one time about like Black men in the workplace. And so that's when I met FD Signifier, because we were on the same panel together on her channel. Maybe that was a year or two ago. Yeah. All right, Calvin, how do you feel about what Raphael Sadiq said about how he doesn't like the title Neo Soul, and how even other artists that were considered Neo Soul like Erica don't like the title? I mean, I actually agreed with what he was talking about with the marketing, because I remember he said the term Neo Soul kind of put all of these artists in a blanket where it meant automatically they don't get the same marketing and promotion as the bigger mainstream pop acts. And all of a sudden it kind of limits them to, well, we know that they're only going to be supported by R&B markets, but specifically adult R&B markets. So they're not going to get the big budgets. They're going to get the, you know, and I feel like some are anomalies. To me, Erykah Badu is an anomaly out of that. I'd say the same for, I was going to say Maxwell, but I don't know. I don't think Maxwell had the best rollouts. He just caught on really well with his audiences. But yeah, so I technically agreed with that term, which is weird, because to me, I never saw it as that until they presented it as like, no, it's a business thing. And then I started thinking back to when, you know, we were at the peak of that era. And I always think back to the first time I saw Jill Scott's Getting in the Way video. That, I want to say, was my 7th grade year. And I remember watching it and knowing, hey, I like this song. This is kind of cool, but this is probably not going to play on TRL, because, you know, I was a TRL kid, right? I used to watch TRL and vote and all the pop videos. I knew all the stuff. They're probably not going to play this on TRL. You just kind of knew certain artists were only going to get a lot of play on BET. And like MTV was not really going to get behind a lot of folks. The exception, I'll say, was like India RE. Like VH1 hopped on it real quick. MTV was cool with it, and I think what saved India RE was that she performed video on the Oprah show, and then that like blew the song up even more. And then she kind of had a bit more of some push behind her. But like a lot of the Neo, like when we start going in, like I feel like there's a caliber of acts: Jill, Erica, Maxwell, D'Angelo, sometimes Angie Stone, who I felt the industry would give them a bigger push. But then you had others like Bilal, Layla Hathaway, who kind of shifted in coming out of the jazz side a little bit, even though she did a little bit of New Jack Swing and R&B too. Algebra, who's the one, something blessed, I'm saying her name wrong. Konya Das, and Fiddler, God rest his soul. Some of those ones, I'm skipping some people. That cohort of folks never got pushed, ever. They just, if you didn't listen to like Music Choice on your cable thing, because half of them didn't even get music videos sometimes. And I'm talking about that second cohort. There just was no push. Anthony Davis is another one. Thank you. They just weren't getting that kind of push. So the more I think about it, yeah, it really was a business thing. And what was interesting, if we want to really have that conversation, they would put neo soul acts with the term. I know we don't like it now, but that's how I grew up calling it that. They would put those acts in the neo soul bucket, and they get the bare minimum marketing. And because of the work that they did as far as touring or building out, Poetry is another one that kind of goes in the larger tier that was a bit more commercially successful, right? The neo soul acts, or the acts that were making this specific kind of music, a lot of them built their audience through touring, word of mouth. If you think back to like the Who Is Jill Scott campaign when that album came out, that girl had posters everywhere, every barbershop, every hair, beauty supply plus store, everywhere, right? that's how they built their audiences. That's how they did a lot of everything. But then on the flip side, you could have an Adele, right? Or Amy Winehouse, who were making something similar, and they have full backing from the label. Roll outs. We're going to get you on all the TV shows in every country. We're going to fly you to Germany. You're going to go to Italy. You're going to go to Spain. We're going to take you to Japan. You're going to go to South America. You're going to go to Mexico. You're going to do New York. You're going to do LA. Then you're going to do Atlanta. You're going to do Chicago. You're going to do this tour. We got to see you to Toronto. Then you got to go to Vancouver, BC. Then you got to go to Berlin. And then we got to go to Dublin. And we got to go to Rotterdam. And they will do a full rollout, right? And so it is interesting now that I think about it that way. But yeah, I'll tell you this. I got most of my homework done to a lot of the music of Angie, Jill, Erica, Maxwell, D'Angelo, Bilal, Anthony David, Anthony Hamilton, who has one of my favorite albums. I'll throw Life Jennings in that mix. Konya Das, Lettucey. Yeah, I mean, Music Soul Child, like, yeah, them homework playlists. I used to get my work done with that stuff playing in the background. Oh, she's on here. What up, Dr. Kamani? She said that is correct. I will resend you the replay link of UNFD on the panel discussing Blackness experience with toxic jobs. Yeah, we'll put that in the description too. Shout out to you, right? When is the next So What Happened dropping? I'm not giving you guys a date because once I get that date, if I miss that date, y'all gonna whack me. I couldn't even get my live last week, but I was like, hey, y'all, I know we're gonna get some content this week, but the book club's tonight and we got no content last week. That's why you're getting it tonight. But no, it's my priority as soon as I get back from my trip to get it finished. I have to sit still and dedicate like 3 weeks of my life to just get it done. Otherwise, it's never going to get done. What it is I don't think people realize I don't use scripts on any of my videos. Like, there's no scripts. And so even the pre-made videos, as polished as they are, there's no script. I may have a piece of paper with some bullet points, but there are no scripts. And so, I have all the points that I want to make, but I've just noticed that I one time tried to do a video reading the script and I didn't like how it came off because you could tell I wasn't being myself. So I'm like, I just have to present it as a conversation. And so by doing that, you end up doing a lot of takes and stuff. And then the research alone, if I show you my research, you're going to know who the artist is. But the research alone right now that I'm doing on this one, I'm at like page 31 of just points. I think when I did Mariah was 38 or 39 pages of notes. And that's why Mariah's was 3 hours long. And a lot of it is, I don't just do the artist, right? We do the context. We talk about where the industry was at the time. We often reference other artists who were going through something similar. We cover a whole lot. And so just the note, to me, I get intimidated by filming it. That's when I kind of like freeze up because I'm like, I got to get this right. Because filming to me is my least favorite part of doing it. So the filming takes forever. Then once you film it, you got to edit it. And normally when I edit, the rough cut of the So What Happens, because again, I have multiple takes. When I put all the clips in the file, it's like a 9-hour project, and I gotta keep chopping down and taking the takes that you want, and then eventually you get down to maybe a good 3.5 hours, and then I really try to tighten it up a little bit more. Does this really need to be in the episode? Do you really need this part? And I'm married to everything. I'm like, no, this has to be in there because then that part doesn't make sense about that. You gotta keep it all right. So then you get through all that. Now you still have to go and get all of the media, all of it. Right. And there's tons and tons. Every video, picture. And mind you, as you're doing the research, you're looking up news articles. Like there's some people, and this is not a dig to anybody, but there's some folks who are doing music related content videos. And they're literally just going to Wikipedia and they just regurgitate what they read on Wikipedia. And that's the deep dive with some pictures and music. Which is why I say, if you watch the deep dive, I always say, check out Justified by Jerry. I think he does an excellent job of his deep dives. And I can't think of the other channel, but they do a lot of New Edition Bobby Brown related deep dives that are really, really good. I cannot think of the name of their channel. Maybe you guys know what it is, but they've done some really, really great ones. But there's other AI channels that are made where it's literally an AI machine just reading the Wikipedia page with the wrong pictures and stuff. I don't know why I'm taking a million times to answer this question. Just know they take a really, really long time, which is why you only get like one of them a year. We got spoiled when I first started because we were on lockdown in the pandemic. So I got 3 out in 1 year. That ain't ever happening again because I don't have that kind of time. But I don't know. Let's push for sometime in the spring. Let's just say that. I'm going to sound like Sheree. Spring, summer, fall. Fall, summer, spring, joggers. It'll be your first over for tea, right? Okay. So I said, now, Professor, we're going to need some scripts. I mean, the scripts are cool. I just don't like the scripts because, I don't know. I don't like it. I even tried to write it the way that I talk. But a lot of times, even when we're having like these conversations, something else will pop up in my head and it'll segue into something totally different. So I can't even stay on script if I wanted to. So yeah, there's that. But I know who the next one is on. It's actually it's actually one I've been wanting to do. When I used to poll you guys about who did you guys want to be the next So It Happened, that artist was one of the first people that I mentioned, and y'all never voted for them. But it's gonna be a great one. I'll say that. Okay. Heather Headley, Avant, Donnell Jones, Vivian Green. Vivian Green I like her. The album that had Gotta Go on it was a nice one too. And it shared that song Wish We Could Go Back that I really, really enjoyed. Elle Varner. I don't know if I consider her new. I was about to say New Jack Swing Neo Soul. I put Elle Varner in like the same boat that I put like A. Marie and Tidra Moses, where it's like this very adult R&B sound, but still kind of commercially viable, where she can still get some spins on like rhythmic radio. You know what I mean? But no, I enjoyed Elle Varner. I was shocked that her song "I Don't Care" didn't blow up. I thought that was going to be a really big one. Like I thought it was going to carry the same weight as Refill. So I was kind of shocked that it didn't, do that. Yes, I just got it, Dr. Kamani. Thank you. All right. And we'll do like 2 more, then I'm gonna go to sleep. Because I still gotta do the timestamps and I get up early. Okay. Calvin, how do you feel about artists previewing new music during touring? Because I saw clips of New Edition Lauryn Hill performing new music on their recent tours. That's always been that used to be a thing, right? And that was a way to kind of get people excited about buying the music. I think it's already really hard to introduce new music on a tour, especially if you're considered a seasoned act that may not be as active on the charts anymore as far as what's current, but people respect your legacy. Because a lot of times people don't want to hear any new music, right? They like just do the songs we know, do the classics, and you keep the new songs. So I think it's always a challenge to do new music. But I like the idea of new music on a tour. Give me something exciting to hear. And there's nothing like, sometimes I get mad though. Sometimes you'll hear a song on a tour, but by the time the studio version comes out, it's been reworked so many times that it's not even hitting the same way. I remember when Jadena was still a thing, and he had that song some type of way. And I remember he kept performing it on his show. And I'm like, this is such a fun song, but where's the studio version? And then when the studio version came out, I was like, oh, it's not as fun as the live, but this is cool. I'll take it. It's cool for what it is, but it won't all that, right? There's that. Did you see how Lena Waithe opened her play Trinity at Baltimore Center Stage Theater? I'm seeing it this Wednesday. She brought so many celebs to the after show talks. Layla, Anthony, Vic Mensa, Issa Rae. I didn't even know about this. You gotta check it out. Yeah, I've kind of been all over the place, a little bit of traveling, knocking out some stuff, trying to come up with some new stuff for y'all, managing this channel, and trying to stay sane in this world is chaotic. But we'll figure it all out. Anyway, this has been a dope live. I appreciate y'all for hanging with me. You probably won't see me next week. I will try to get something out before the end of the week. I can't promise anything because again, my schedule's a little tight. I'll be back after the 16th for sure. As far as that, by then I'm back from my trip, but we'll try to squeeze in something. I still owe a comedically hard-headed episode as well. Cross our fingers. But anyway, like I said, there's a lot going on. It's important to be in community, have your discernment, right? And so again, as things unfold, stay safe, stay sane, mind your business so that you can age well. Anyway, I'm out, folks. Have a good night.